I didn't have the mic on when I started. Hopefully you all can hear me. Unless I fucked up the mic settings. I didn't, did I? You all can hear me. We're good, right? Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna just take that. I realized I started and everybody was saying hi, and then I was like, where's my mic? I was like, well, I'll let them know. How are we all? I'll give you all a minute to get settled. Bit of a rocky start to the day. So, yes, maybe is awake in here. I already feel more comfortable than last Tuesday. Also tired. I am super tired. But yeah, it's just everything's gone like kind of dumpster fire today. Okay. Some of this is probably TMI. One, I couldn't find the setting powder that I normally use. Two, I never clean my makeup brushes. Like, because I use the same colors. And so I just put them in a closed container, and each brush is used for an individual thing and an individual color, so I almost never clean them. And that's gross. I understand that. But they did get cleaned today because I accidentally knocked the canister all over the floor. And I shaved my neck right before I started. And I was like, I'm going to brush all this hair up later. So there was a bunch of hair all over the floor. And I was like, son of a... So then I had to get all the brushes up. And I cleaned all the brushes. Got my hair out of the brush. It was really annoying. Yeah, so then I had to clean all my makeup brushes. And then I didn't have the setting powder that I wanted. Anyway, they're really just minor inconveniences. That doesn't necessarily make my day bad. It just makes me irritated. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm tired. And I didn't fill this mod up before I started. It's completely empty. How did I not notice it was this empty? Anyway. Everybody ignore that I just held that up. Anyway. So are you. Okay. We're all tired. We're all ready to wind down with a good bedtime story, hopefully. Thank you, Denny. Appreciate it. You got it. Did you DM me the other day? Who DM'd me? I need to check my DMs. I let messages build up because I felt really weird the past couple days. Smoothie of choice. Oh, also, someone put in my tea update, they were like, I feel like water isn't a thing at your house. And I was like, I drink water. I do. I drink it. So I've been drinking water all day because I felt bad. For being called out, maybe. For not drinking water, I drink water. I'm drinking water right now. I do have a monster over here, though. Courtesy of Maybe. Appreciate it, Maybe. Oh, the Bones Coffee. The Bones Coffee Nightmare Edition. The line. Is that what you're talking about, or is this a different thing? Because I did see the Bones Coffee, and I was like, I want it so badly. Do I need it? No, I don't need it. Do I want it? Absolutely. I want to try that so bad. So I probably won't tell him. I can't. I can't. I shouldn't. I'm responsible. I'm a responsible adult with adult money. Yay. I have responsibilities. What do you mean? Are you going to inject me with caffeine? I feel like any day now I'm going to wake up to maybe holding a syringe right above my bed. You just buy it for the art? That's nuts. Well, if you buy any more for the art and then you want to donate the coffee. No, I'm joking. You don't have to do that. Yeah, Bones was the line I was talking about last week that I really... Wait, no. I take back what I said. Yes, I do. I want it. I want to come get him. I gotta come get him. God. I'm sorry, I'm so tired. I've been really off the past, 3 days. Work has really done a number this week. I'll just get you an IV, it'll be fun. I don't need a literal drip coffee. Okay. That's a Nody joke. Remind me to tell Nody that for later. Actually, no. Nobody tell Nody that I made that joke, and I will never make it again either. Forget I said anything. I'm real tired. What did the coworker circus do? Oh my gosh. Coworkers. Well, 2 of them are leaving. 2 of our least favorite are heading out shortly. And I could not be more thrilled. But this week was kind of... Anyway, remember how I said my tires were getting in bad shape? And that I was going to have to get new ones? And that I knew I was going to have to get new ones? And I was planning on doing that next month. After I paid rent. Well, funny story. Now I can't pay rent. Or I can't work. One of the two. Because... Yeah. Do you know it's really fun trying to file for roadside assistance with Geico at 1 a.m? They don't like it. Because they have no tow truck providers. It's alright. I got the donut on by the time they picked up the phone. 30 minutes in the dark. 1 a.m. Yeah. Thank you for the dinosaur. So yeah, there's that. Thank you for the roses. I appreciate it. So that's how work went. And that's why I'm really tired. So I tanked the last end of my shift on Saturday. And then Sunday, I missed half my shift because I kept trying to get a hold of tires on a Sunday, which surprisingly, not a lot of people sell tires on a Sunday. I guess on the Lord's Day, people don't get flats. But whatever. So yeah. A bit earlier than I expected to have to dish out for tires. It's fine. I truck on. Of course, it's nothing I'm not used to, so. How bad? It wasn't too bad. I was immediately by a parking lot, so like when it happened, I was really easy to just sort of dip into this parking lot. Granted, it was also on a college campus with cops that make sure you have a parking pass, which I don't. So that was its own race against time. I'm trying to see how fast I can get a donut on before the cops show up and try to give me a ticket on top of having to pay for new tires. Because the cops are pretty ruthless. They do not give a shit who you work for or what you're doing. Even if you're like, I'm a delivery driver, half the time they don't care. One of the cops the other day tried to order from our store, and when the driver showed up, luckily not me, because I would have gotten in way worse trouble. It was Jason, I think. Yes. No. Yes. Jason. Went to go deliver it, and then it was on campus, on this college campus, and he showed up, tried to deliver it, and then the cop threatened to ticket him for parking on campus without a permit. And he was like, you ordered the food. And he was like, I'll tell you what, I'll take it back to the store and you can come pick it up then. The cop ended up just taking the food, but yeah. So it got pretty ridiculous. Yes. Yeah. And this is the time of the year where they're like trying to make as much money as possible, so they're like, better ticket everybody, you know? So I was like, I really gotta try and get this donut on quick. So I'm just like race against the clock getting this donut on. 30 minutes in the dork. Shinzo, my hero. You get it. You got it. Oh my god. So yeah, I'm real tired. So I had that all week. I was dealing with tire nonsense. Which made me kind of like tank in the motivation department in all areas. So the motivation has just gone straight down the tubes. You get it, right? Oh, thank you for the dinosaur and the roses. Right? I was like, how are you gonna order food and then be butthurt at the delivery driver who drove it to you? Just go pick it up. You have a patrol car. Oh. Anyway, a cab. In my personal opinion. You know what? No, in my professional opinion. This is my job. So. Oh yeah, all of them on campus. So yes, Dad, I do want the critter. I would like him. I will pick him up. I will bring him home. I will send him to heaven. Okay, thank you for the corgi. That is really ominous if you did not know what we were talking about. Dad... Okay. Hold on. I need to re-up on this department. Hold on. I'll explain in a second. Let me get my story straight really quick, and I'll be right back, okay? I'm back. Yeah. Yeah. And, okay. Would you like the truth or a really nice lie? You know what? I don't care. I'm not giving you the option. Honesty is always the best policy. I have a, what some might call a strange hobby. I call it, call it empathy. But I have a bit of a strange hobby, and that hobby is I get really sad when I see roadkill. And one of the reasons I get really sad when I see roadkill is because they died alone. And no one cared about them. And anyway, so, and it never really mattered to me if it was like a possum or a skunk. It didn't matter. The fact was that they were a living animal and they died alone and no one cared. And, so, I go and pick up roadkill or what is left of the roadkill. And sometimes, using protective gloves, I want to emphasize, protect yourself. I pick it up and I put it in an ice chest, wrap it up, put it in an ice chest, and I take it home and I give it a proper burial. And, yeah, that's my hobby. That's what I do. That's sweet in its own morbid way. Anyway, Dad had a dead baby skunk, and he was like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yes. Yes, I would like to bury it. Thank you. I would appreciate it." So I'm going to collect this baby skunk, and I'm going to bring it home, and I'm going to bury it. We're gonna have a little skunk, and we're gonna have a little skunk ceremony. We're gonna bury it, have a little ceremony for it. Maybe put on wings of an angel. I don't know. We're gonna do some stuff. Anyway, so that's what I do. That's my weird hobby, everybody. Now that you know, You did not name him. Okay. Dad. Really? Okay. Anyway, so that's what I plan to do, and that's what I mean by critter. It's also very strange that I was like, yeah, I want the critter, I'm gonna bring him home and send him to heaven. And if you did not know, right after I said it, I was like, oof, someone's gonna think I'm like murdering cats, and I would never murder a cat. I would fuck. Someone's gonna think I'm like crazy, and I'm not. It's already dead. That's what I meant by sending it to heaven. I could never kill a cat. I love cats too much. Cat supremacy. Yeah, and then, they had somebody that cared, even if they were a skunk. And, I always thought it was kind of mean that we treat, because I never really understood, like, as a kid, I always kind of thought it was mean that we treated, like, skunks and possums and stuff like pests, but we keep other animals as pets, and we don't view them as, like, pariahs of the animal kingdom or anything. And I think raccoons are adorable. And I don't mind skunks. I don't, my stepdad used to intentionally try and run over skunks in the road whenever he saw them, and it would always make me so sad. And I get it, like, they stink, but, like, so they're just trying to live their lives. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. You don't have to worry about smelling bad if you just leave them alone. Yeah, like, leave them alone. They're trying to live their lives. They're adorable. Anyway. And also, possums are good for the environment. People leave possums alone. I always try and, like, I see possums in the road all the time, and I always, like, freak out and try and swerve out of the way. Because I don't want to kill anything, preferably. I won't even kill insects half the time unless they're flies or mosquitoes or wasps. But apart from that, I don't like to kill anything. Yeah, like, I mean, they're not bothering anybody. They're just trying to live their lives. I mean, it's one thing if they're probably mean if you interfere with them too much, yeah. Because they're still wild animals. It doesn't mean that they're not entitled to, a quality of life. Anyway, that's just my opinion. And if you don't like possums or raccoons or, skunks or anything, you're entitled to your opinion. I just really hope you don't try and kill them. They also love cat food. Didn't know that. I might have to leave out cat food. I already have cat food. Jasmine's in the house. Dad's here. Who's next? Paul? No. No. I meant to text you back, but my motivation has fled. I don't know. He's not there anymore. I like to think he got adopted. Better have gotten adopted. Oh God, I'm sure. Because he says all the time, he was like, I saw your whatever thing, and I'm like, why? You don't even watch this show. He's just trying to be supportive. And I meant to text you back, and I lost all motivation yesterday. We didn't even DDR for that long. We ended up watching the My Hero movie, the first one, because Dave's not seen it. And then we watched She-Hulk, which is good if you haven't seen it. I'm drinking water because someone made me feel like I don't drink enough water. The series, the new one. So we're watching, there's only like 2 episodes up right now, which is super bummy because it ended on a total cliffhanger. So yeah. But it's really good, and you should go watch it if you haven't. Man, now y'all talking about caffeinated water, insomniac. I have not. I haven't looked in there yet today. I was too busy dropping stuff all over the floor and not getting the setting powder I wanted. See, I never watched... I know this is going to be a thing. I don't mean it to sound as pretentious as I think it does. I never watched any of, the things. Game of Thrones. There we go. Sorry. I never watched, good night, Gray. I never watched Game of Thrones at all, but I read all of the books. And I think that's why, is because it's not even like I was like, oh, the books are better or whatever. Because I don't even know. I didn't even make it that far. I made it like maybe a few episodes in, and it just didn't jive with the way I, like, imagined it, I guess. And that happens with a lot of stuff. Like, every once in a while, I'll have something, like, get it perfectly. Like, Lord of the Rings, couldn't have imagined it better if I tried. But then there's stuff that just, it gets it super wrong. For me, personally. And then I can't watch it. It, like, ruins the view of it that I had in my head. So then I just don't watch it. And then I've, just sort of missed the entire boat on, what's the sequel or whatever, House of Dragons or something? I don't know, something about dragons. Mother of Dragons, House of Dragons, Basement of Dragons, Dungeon full of dragons. I don't know, something, whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that sounds so pretentious when you say that too. No, I'm not saying you sound pretentious. I'm saying that sentence sounds pretentious, right? Where you're just like, the book was better. But it was. And then I didn't watch the show. So then now everybody is complaining of House of Dragons. Half my shit is like, people complaining about representation in House of Dragons. There's not enough representation. There's the wrong kind of representation. There's not enough there's too much representation. Is everything, everybody's like fighting about it, and I was like, I don't even know what the show is about. Because people are too busy fighting about the representation. And we should have more POC representation in media. That's not what I'm saying. It's just from the context, I don't even know what's happening. It's kind of funny. Because I still don't even know what it's about. Is it like a prequel or something? Oh, thank you for the compliment. I mean, sure. I do think they have a point. There definitely should be more POC representation in media because there's just not a lot. And there should be, honestly. I feel like media should be as diverse as, like, the world is, and it's not. Anyway, prequel. Okay. Good to know. Because I was wondering what they were going to do with it. I was like, didn't they kind of wrap that up? Like, I remember everybody complaining about the ending, so I feel like they wrapped it up, but now I'm wondering where they're going with it. Oh. I'm so glad you're liking Bach and O. It's a really good show, right? Like, you love it, it's goofy, but it's also like, I'm so glad you're liking Bach and O. Okay. Do we get it in book form, or? But he hasn't even finished the last book, so, like, whatever. It's fine. I don't know. I'm just not interested in trying to pick up something that I haven't even seen the original series of, but so many people were talking about it, and I'm like, Miria and Isaac, they have been one of my dream cosplays for so long, because hear me out. Back when I used to go to cons, it was my dream to do them, because think about it. You bring a giant sack, you fill it up with snacks, you dress in a cheap, like, you get the wigs and everything and do everything accurate, but then you just get a cheap Halloween costume, a different one for each day you're there. Get, like, the baseball one, and, like, and then you just take your giant sack and you run through the con every day, and you fill it with snacks, and then you never have to purchase food while you're at the con. You're stocked up, baby. Your costume didn't even cost that much, because all you really spent a decent chunk of change on was the wig. Other than that, you just got a cheap Halloween costume to walk around in and act like a psycho. That sounds amazing, right? And it would technically be accurate, because the only thing they do is dress up in cheap Halloween costumes and rob people. It is the best con costume. I am calling it now. And I'm so surprised no one has ever thought to do it. That would save you so much money and you would have so much fun. I can't imagine a more fun cosplay to go out in public in if you had to go out in public in costume. So much fun. Yeah, Fire and Blood. I knew that because Game of Thrones was only like the first actual book in the series of Fire and Blood, but everybody just calls it Game of Thrones. Oh, super fun. It sounds super fun, and I highly advocate. If you haven't seen Bacano, it's about a bunch of, like, basically mobsters that find out that they're immortal, or accidentally drink an elixir that makes them immortal, and they realize that they can't die. Essentially, whatever happens to them, it just reverses. Like, I think at one point, a guy gets his finger shot off, and then all of a sudden the finger just zooms back onto his hand, the blood just reinserts itself, and he's fine. And they slowly start realizing they're immortal. And it's a bunch of different rivaling crime gang families. And they've been infighting for years. So now this is just a new opportunity to torment each other. Anyway, and they're two just random robbers that are a couple that are very much couple goals. And they clearly love each other, but their only goal is like get rich quick schemes of breaking and entering into these rich families' houses and stuff like that. And they just decide that they're just gonna go into a random costume shop. And they've literally done this, I think, in an episode where they went in, they were like, we need masks to hide our faces, and you better not tell anyone that you saw us. And like, they just rob the guy and then steal a bunch of costumes and then dress up as like baseball players and then like run around and then steal a bunch of stuff and then dip. At one point they dress up as like a priest and a nun and try and rob a church, I think. I'm not even sure. I haven't seen it in so long. But but they go and try and rob a church, and it's like one of the best things ever. And I swear to God, it would be the best couples costume for any con. It'd be so cheap. It'd be easy. You'd have nothing but fun in it. You act like a psycho all day. And you can shove a bunch of snacks in your gigantic loot bag. What was that? I don't know. Everybody be very quiet. I'm not sure what that was. I don't know what that was. I don't know, maybe. I just heard like a loud... Is it screaming? There have been no follow-up noises. Okay, that was the back door. If the birds would stop for a second, I'd be able to hear. Oh, no, yeah, it definitely sounded like Sarah. But I don't know what he would be in the kitchen yelling about when I definitely hear Elden Ring in the next room. Is there an intruder in my house? I don't think it was. It definitely sounded like... Something's up. If something's really wrong, he'll come in here. Maybe. He did find that guy trying to take stuff out of our carport one time and went out and screamed at him. God, don't say stuff like that. Man, now I'm gonna go check. What? Lady Eva. Hold on. Getting up for the second time tonight. Jeez. We'll get to it eventually. We'll get to the story time eventually, but damn. So much distractions today. Hold on. Oh, God, everybody in the chat just convinced me to die in the water. You what? We're back. We're good. You have a large walking stick. For what? Cyril's fine. He got mad at the game, and he was yelling at the game because he forgot I was live. Cyril's playing Elden Ring in the next room. That's kind of his thing. This is our Tuesday night thing. I go live, he plays Elden Ring in the next room. And on Mondays we play DDR. Yeah, we're good. He's good. Sometimes we even play games together. It's pretty crazy. No. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the live stream? Whatever. We're gonna read a book. Where is the mic? Where is the mic? You know what? That's a great question. It's over here. It's just chilling. Damn. I got it now. So sorry about that. I keep taking it off to go run into the next room. Any chance you want to guess what the next incident that's going to get me to leave this chair is going to be? Like, you guys want to take bets, or... Because, if you're wrong, I get the pot, okay? That way I can pay for new tires. No, that was a joke. I'm not getting up anymore, I promise. Hopefully nothing, yeah. Was working pretty well for not being on me? Really? Oh man, I'm glad you could hear something. Sorry. Probably. Absolutely pun. Says drink refill. I have a Monster and a water over here. I'm not gonna get up for beverages. That would make sense. She does like to knock over this ring light. It's like one of her favorite activities. Only when I'm using it, though. She never does it when I'm not using it. But when the light is on, she definitely will come up and headbutt it. yeah, but the water's fine. I'm fine on the water. It's fine. I'm just really thirsty today. Also, someone made me feel bad for not drinking enough water. Felt personally called out. Yes, I did. I filled up the tank. We'll go get it before we start, because we're gonna start here soon. If you've never been in here before and you happen to be new, I don't know, we seem at pretty solid numbers for people who were normally in here, so I think we just got it whittled down to the regulars, which is good, because if you're new, we don't do this the entire time. It's not us just chilling and talking. I'm here for one solid purpose, really. And that is to read you a bedtime story. Now, we've been reading a whole book series, so if you're jumping in now's a pretty bad time to jump in. I mean, it's never impossible to catch up, but you got 3 books that you gotta get to before you get here. Now, those are all on YouTube, and you can check them out on the link in my bio, but we're on the 4th book now. And if you don't know what's going on, you're going to be pretty confused when I start reading you all a bedtime story. So, here's where we're at. In case you missed last time, Horst and the D Society fled the Ministerium and the weird flying monster thing babies and the werewolves and the Walking Dead with the aid of some lesbian circus workers. They are definitely ladies wearing pants, and they definitely hightailed it out of there with their cool train. And they don't want anything to do with the D Society or anything that's going on. But the D Society would really appreciate it if Horst stuck around. So Horst is having a difficult time knowing if he should get involved or not. And that's where we left off. Feel this recap is very targeted. Why would you say that? I don't understand. Do you not like lesbian circus workers? That's kind of all that happened last time, right? Lesbian circus workers. Maybe. Sapphic aviators. They do. They're entomopter pilots, which is, yeah, kind of like little 1-2 person plane. They do flying tricks. They be flying. And sometimes agricultural work. I don't know anybody who doesn't love lesbian circus workers. Anyway, so if you're new here, that's what we're doing. So if that doesn't appeal to you, if you, for instance, don't like lesbian circus workers, now might be the time to get the hell out of this live. Leave. Don't let the door hit you on your ass on the way out. Because we're going to read a story, and if you don't want to hear a story, well, I'm not going to be talking much. I'm not going to be looking at the screen. I'm not going to know what you're saying. If your complaints are lodged on deaf ears, so you might as not do that. I would also really appreciate it if you don't report my account because I don't acknowledge you, or because I'm reading a book, or because I'm dressed from an anime. Whatever you think is going on here, trust me, it's not going on here. Nothing to see. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. All right. Are we all choosing the chat? Y'all are ready. Y'all have been ready. What am I doing? Asking if you all are ready. Of course you are. Anyway. Chapter 10. In which birds fly and death comes to town. As dawn arrived and Horst slipped into a deep sleep from which only the next night would rouse him, the small community awoke to find Miss Virginia Montgomery's flying circus among them. The locals were moderately excited by this development, and a great milling throng of perhaps 8 people gathered at a respectful distance from the train and the row of gaudy entomopters that stood before it along the access road, gleaming and so out of place in the determinably bucolic setting that they may as well have just set down after a long migration from Mars. Miss Virginia herself approached the worthies and spoke to them of aerial thrills, adventures, excitement, and very good crop-dusting rates. This last raised most interest, and, along with a few courier requests to carry reasonable loads for reasonable distances, represented the first part of the circus's trade for the day. The afternoon would feature a display providing the media blitz, represented by a foolscap-sized poster placed within the covered town notice board a fortnight before, proof sufficient to provide a viable audience. The town, for all its profound failure to whelm, was still the center of a substantial farming area, and should, according to Miss Virginia's calculations, provide enough financial reasons to linger for 3 days. She had been wrong before, though. Deals were made between the exotic visitors and the locals. All seemed workable enough, but for one request to send a spiced ham to an emigre family in Chicago and another to transport a prize heifer 60 miles. After brief explanations of just exactly how far away Chicago was and how unhappy a heifer would be strapped to the underside of an entomopter as it gamely hopped hedgerows and rivers for 60 miles because there was no way it could hope to fly with that much weight, business was concluded and jobs assigned. 3 of the entomopters will be carrying packages distanced of up to 100 miles, while Miss Virginia's own Spirit of 76, with its relatively capacious cargo capability, would be supporting spray wings and flying the stars and stripes over several fields of cabbage threatened by caterpillars, leaving a vapor trail of DDT in its wake. The Major had seen plenty of entomopter flights in his time, so while Alicia and the Professor watched the aircraft lift and depart on their sundry missions, he busied himself with encoding a detailed message and then standing over the telegraph operator at the station as it was sent. He rejoined his colleagues and said, "Well, it's out of our hands now." "How many of the others do you think survived the assault?" asked Professor Stone. "I'm reasonably optimistic about that," replied the Major. "The enemy focused their efforts upon us, and we were the smaller part of the force. I think the mortars may have antagonized them somewhat. In any case, I didn't see them attempt to attack any of our people in the square. It would have meant rousting out all the poor wretches in the shanties, and we were far more obvious. Unless the Ministerium and its minions performed some sort of follow-up action, of which we are unaware, then our people should have had ample opportunity to fade into the night. We'll know within a few hours in any case. They should have fallen back to the rendezvous points and reported into London, as I've just done. When the committee sends the reply, we should have a better idea how things stand." "Did you mention horse cabal to them?" asked Alicia, her indifference a little too studious to be convincing. The Major looked at her oddly. "Of course I did. How could I fail to mention that the Lord of the Dead has come over to our side?" "What do you think they will say?" "That it's a bloody good thing, I expect." "You're sure of his sincerity?" "As sure as I can be. Look, Miss Bartos, there's always the chance that this is all some sort of devilishly clever plot to make us deliver the rest of our forces into a cunningly laid trap. I've racked my mind over it, though, and I can't see how such a plan could have been created in the time they had, unless Mr. Cabal is entirely committed to their cause and is busking his way towards betraying us. I cannot believe there is such a plan." "What?" asked the Professor. "If that is exactly what he is doing?" "Then we're all doomed," said the Major. "Obviously." He nodded to where they could make out the distant shape of Miss Virginia's copperhead performing tight turns and swoops as it rained a fine mist of insecticide across cabbages and dismayed caterpillars. "She's good in that thing, isn't she? It looks about as maneuverable as a coal barge, but It's actually quite nippy. Midday brought the return of the couriers, Daisy with a story of having to fight off the advances of a station agent at her destination who apparently harbored a secret lust for cowgirls, inspired by cheap novels bearing ridiculously romanticized renderings of Calamity Jane and Annie Oakley among their covers. He kept saying, "I loved her cowgirls," and I was telling him that was all very flattering, but would he just sign for the damn package? And then he got grabby, so I drew on him. "You drew on him?" asked the professor, imagining something involving pen and ink and having difficulty seeing how this was an appropriate response. "Sure," she said, laughing, and tapped a finger to the grip of a revolver where it showed in the shoulder holsters all the women wore, presumably because it was easier to reach the weapons there when in a cockpit. "Oh," said the professor, both relieved by the explanation and embarrassed by his slowness. "I bet that quieted him down," said Diaboom of the explosive name that, disappointingly, only meant tree in Dutch. "You'd have thought so, wouldn't you? But no, having a cowgirl drawn him was about the most exciting thing that had happened to him since his voice broke." "So what happened then?" "He signed, thanked me again, proposed, took it like a trooper when I said no, and waved when I went." "He proposed," interrupted the professor. "On a first meeting? He proposed marriage?" Daisy grinned at him. "Marriage? Heck no, Professor, he didn't propose marriage." And she and her colleagues left the professor in his slowly deepening scandalization to go and ready their aircraft for the afternoon show. A decent little crowd of perhaps 50 had gathered at 2 o'clock. The major, however, regarded them with an air of concerned disappointment. "This can't possibly be economically practical for Miss Montgomery and her girls," he said, pronouncing it girls. "It can't be cheap running an operation like this," agreed Professor Stone. "How much do you expect to make from this?" he asked Becky, who was standing nearby with a collection box. "This? Drinking money and a few washers. The idea is we do a couple of small shows to get people talking and spread the word. Then we do the big one on market day, and that should see us through until we reach the next place." Stone looked up at the size of the crowd and asked, "This big show, how many people would you anticipate turning up?" "More or less everyone in the area. That's not much entertainment around here, so people grab what they can while they can. I'd say," she pulled an estimative face, "perhaps 2,000 or so." Haskins and Stone were visibly surprised. "That many?" asked the former. "It's true. Happens just about every time. They'll come in from all over bringing their families. We'll have a good crowd." The crowd they had was therefore small, but appreciative. The show was informal, to say the least, but no great build-up was necessary, as the onlookers were already eager for diversion. Necks craned this way and that as they searched the cool blue sky for the anemopters, distantly audible but hidden from view. Becky leaned closer to Haskins and Stone. "Hold on to your hats," she said quietly. Even as they were drawing breath to inquire why that might be necessary, their hats were blown off by the shockingly low passage of Mink's and Diaboom's anemopters appearing from behind the train. They must have been approaching rapidly, close abeam, their craft almost brushing the grass beyond the line of carriages to have made such a stealthy approach, before opening their throttles and hopping over the roof of the carriage by which the professor, the major, and Becky were standing. This also brought them up behind the crowd, who, collectively bamboozled by the engine tones more easily audible ahead of them, had assumed that this would be the direction of the approach. Alicia arrived with a bag full of supplies she had just bought at the general store in time to see her colleagues chasing their headwear. She put down the bag by the fence alongside the access road and leaned against it to watch as Mink and Dia broke into opposite directions and into the area of open sky framed by their craft. Two oncoming entomopters appeared, rising from behind a stand of trees. Miss Virginia Montgomery's Spirit of 76 was plainly in the lead, its silhouette rounded and luxuriant, a lioness flanked by a jaguar. The crowd were still laughing in delighted surprise from the first approach when they realized that the two newcomers were also heading dead towards them. To their credit, they limited their nervousness at this development with some more nervous laughter and perhaps a surreptitious communal crouch that only knocked an inch or so from their individual heights, but served to make them feel a little bit safer. They had nothing to fear, however. Miss Virginia shot over their heads with a clearance of a good 10 feet, while Daisy broke right at the same moment, moving off to reform with Dia, while Mink fell in line astern to Spirit of 76. Although Becky claimed that the display had been cobbled together only a few hours beforehand, based on the lay of the land, it remained terrifically impressive. It was true that the ring mistress was there primarily to top and tail each sequence of barnstorming, powering through a scattering formation to punctuate rather than participate, but she was clearly no mean pilot, if not nearly as impressive as those she led. They had the advantage of leaner, more agile aircraft, too, and while the Copperhead might not have been quite the flying version of a number 24 to Pimco that Becky had suggested, it could not hope to compete in anything but cargo capacity, and that attribute was not usually considered much of a crowd pleaser. A small piece of genius that both Alicia and Haskins noted was the way by which the display hinted that the entomopters were capable of doing far more. They would bank so hard that it seemed likely that they would roll, but they did not. They would climb so steeply and dive so precipitously that there was always the hint that continued pressure on the yoke would finish in a loop, either upwards or in a bunted inverse finish. Yet they never quite followed through on these, but only stall-turned or pulled out. It was a tease, a great beckoning finger drawn across the sky to lure the punters onto the big show in 2 days' time, and to make them excited enough to talk about it. The flying display that afternoon did not last long, only perhaps 15 minutes, but that was just long enough to whet appetites for far more without overstaying their welcome. "Masterful," murmured Professor Stone as the 4 aircraft performed a last flyby in line astern, the pilots waving to their small but highly appreciative audience as they passed, before curling off towards the distance, then returning and performing simultaneous vertical landings in a neat line along the length of the field they had hired as their showground. Becky was already ahead of the crowd, collecting coins and washers while simultaneously keeping them a healthy distance from the blurred wings of the insect-like aircraft as the engines wound down, for it is a truth universally acknowledged that knocking an arm off a local will put a damper on the subsequent relations. It had its effect, too. The next day, after a night in which Horst was told of the skills of Miss Virginia Montgomery's flying circus and spent the rest of his waking hours on a mild sulk because he would never see them at first hand, the crowd was somewhat larger, numbering perhaps 80, of whom the great majority of the previous day's audience constituted a part in addition to those excited enough by word of mouth to skip tasks and chores to spend a few minutes watching the flying wonderment of it all. Nor were they disappointed, this show being different enough from the first display to excite the old hands along with the new. When they performed their flyby and synchronized landing this time, the applause was louder and there were fewer washers to be found in the collection box subsequently. The Major, Professor, and Alicia were not on hand for it this time, however. They had been sitting around the telegraph office since shortly after noon, awaiting a reply from London. As the day wore on, however, they accepted one by one that it was unlikely that there would be a telegram arriving for them, and returned to the train in various states of dudgeon. The Major was used to waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen, for that is the lot of a soldier, and as long as he was ready when the call came, he was content. To this end, he had bought a set of silver teaspoons from one of the farmers he had met at the general store, and, after the professor had assayed the metal as being of sufficient purity, had, with a cold efficiency that would have saddened the heart of the farmer who had sold him the heirloom, proceeded to cut the spoons into small pieces. These he melted in the small furnace in Becky's workshop, and then poured it into bullet molds. He could not produce rounds of sufficient precision to be used in the semi-automatic weapons, nor did he have enough metal to make many, but at least it represented a full load for each of their revolvers, Alicia having found a snub-nose 32 lying forgotten in a drawer of the circus's office, and thus liberated it for the good of mankind. Of Horst, there is little enough to say at this juncture, except for one small oddity. Since his original death and rebirth as the result of a contremps with the vampire in which he prevailed, and his subsequent contamination with the curse by dint of eating bits of it, my contact's shifting real bad. Okay, hold on. I'm going to reread that. Since his original death and rebirth as the result of a contretemps with a vampire in which he prevailed, and his subsequent contamination with the curse by dint of eating bits of it, by necessity rather than any culinary desire, the story by which this has occurred is too involved for a footnote such as this, but the uninformed reader is directed to the first novel dealing with the life and times of Johannes Cabal the Necromancer. Indeed, if the reader finds themselves here without having read that previous tale, they are brave indeed, and should brace themselves for further incomprehension. Horst had lost the ability to dream. His sleep was as abrupt and featureless as general anesthetic, a blink with a duration of hours. He had missed it at first, but as his year with the Cabal Brothers Carnival had wound on, his memories of dreaming had faded as phantasmagorically as do the memories of dreams. Now, very unexpectedly, they were back, and yet he could never quite remember them. All he could recall on waking was a faint sense of watching trouble unfold for someone else. He felt a grudging sympathy for the hapless protagonist of the dreams, not least because he was aware that he was not the only observer, and this unseen other watcher's emotions were unreadable beyond a stark malevolence that flowed and ticked with machinations and methodicalities like a clockwork anthill. This was almost the limit of his recollection, but for a few tendency to awaken with a blurted exclamation. On the dusk of their day of arrival, it had been "Cats!" and on the evening after the first show, it was "Crabs!" and he had no clear idea why he said these things, only that there was a fading impression of a lazy malignancy with the first wakening, and of a vicious stupidity with the second. It was a mystery, and not one that he felt comfortable discussing with anyone else. On the evening after the second display, he awoke with the words, "You little bastard!" on his lips, and this time he felt something familiar about the venom with which they were spoken, as if somebody was expressing their animosity through him, somebody he knew. His first thought was his brother, but he failed to see how Johannes could or would do such a thing. Cats, crabs, and little bastards were as unlikely triumvirate for casual conversation or urgent messages. Why would his brother go to all the trouble of creating some sort of psychic link if only to communicate such desperate trivialities? It was ridiculous, but he appreciated that did not make it impossible. The day of the Great Flying Circus Aero Show arrived. Great is a very relative term, but it would certainly be the first time any kind of real aero show had been held in the area, unless one counted that time 5 years ago when a trainee pilot flew into the windmill. That had been a very short sort of show, and memorable for only one of the worst reasons. Thus, based on available metrics, Miss Virginia Montgomery's Flying Circus was set to put on the greatest aero show the area had ever seen. It was a beautiful day for a disaster. The skies had remained cool blue throughout the circus's stay, and today was no exception. A breeze strong enough to be refreshing without being strong enough to trouble the anemopters had appeared at dawn, blowing in from the east, bringing with it high scudding clouds formed over a distant sea. It was a market day, so the breeze started blowing in farmers and their families almost as soon as the sun was up, and they had spent the morning discussing prices and selling between themselves and the traders who had hired freight cars and the trains that now occupied two of the remaining sidings next to the circus train. There was some grumbling that it had the siding by the access road, meaning some creative use of boards and cargo pallets was necessary to get goods to and from the newcomers, but the promise of an unusually large gathering for the show ameliorated such complaints. The possibility of extra custom is always a balm to the heart of even the most curmudgeonly of traders. The show was set for 2 o'clock, the idea being that this would give people a chance to eat and, ideally, drink in the odd, thrown-together building that passed for a tavern and what passed for a town. A slightly drunk spectator was likely to be a slightly more generous one, and slightly drunk male spectators are more likely still to be generous when the collection boxes are wielded by presentable young women in close-fitting flight suits. This was part of the wisdom of Miss Virginia Montgomery's Flying Circus, and it had always proved true. While Horst slumbered in a death-like sleep that was less dreamless than he was used to, the 3D Society members kept themselves out of the way the air show's preparation. A response had finally arrived to the Major's report, a lengthy telegram that must have set the Society back a few pounds to transmit. The tavern no longer being the nest of quiet corners that had previously been for them, the three retired to the compartment aboard the train that doubled as a common room, and waited impatiently as Major Haskins slowly teased the meaning from the enciphered phrases with frequent reference to the code book he carried, a small leather-bound volume printed on very flammable, very edible rice paper. After some time during which the professor closed his eyes and waited in silent meditation while Alicia looked out of the window and fought down the urge to sigh, grunt, and possibly scream with frustration, the Major laid down his pencil and took up the finished message in clear text. Good news first, he said. Almost all of our people in the town escaped. We lost 2 who were acting as sniper and spotter from a rooftop close by the front of the square. I would think it's possible they simply missed the withdrawal signal and may still be alive. Anyway, that's the state of affairs there. Is that all the good news? Asked the professor, his eyes still closed. No, the Society has taken its findings and placed them before our sister organizations. There is to be a general mobilization. You call that good news? We can handle this, said Alicia. We don't need anyone else coming in and... Yes, we do, Alicia, chided the professor quietly. We rather shot our bolt at the attack on the castle, and they sent us packing. This is more than the Society can deal with. We're putting ourselves in the debt of a bunch of lunatics. Hardly, said the Major. There are no debts being called in here, no favors asked. The threat the Ministerium Tenebra represents is too great for point scoring. An unassociated organization, it says here, is joining the effort. The professor's eyes blinked open. The Templars? I would guess so. It's the usual formula for them. Alicia's mood was not improving. But we fought the Templars. How can we work with them? My enemy's enemy, Alicia, replied the Major. Approaching apocalypses make for strange bedfellows. We may have had our disagreements in the past, but they're a very moral bunch and very committed to their principles. One of those principles is the hunting and killing of monsters, although they have a rather more biblical way of saying it. Quite, agreed the professor. Given the choice of continuing the silly feud between us or joining us to prevent the creation of a tetrarchy, they will, and by the sound of it, have opted for the latter. What's a tetrarchy? Asked Major Haskins. Government by monsters, said the professor complacently. Neologism, freshly minted. I think the Greek works. We've been given a rendezvous point, said the Major, reading further down the decoded message. We're to make best time and join the rest of our people from the initial attack. What? Said Alicia slowly. What if this attack fails too? Then it's out of our hands altogether. Sympathetic contracts within local states have been briefed and, I hope and pray, are already mobilizing. If we can't nip the Ministerium's grand scheme in the bud, it will turn into war. Our strength is we respond a great deal faster than any army can hope to. The business with those flying monstrosities the other night proves they have their Lord of Powers already. They miscalculated with our Mr. Cabal, but he was only ever intended to provide small numbers of specialized troops anyway. Between the shape-changers, the mindless undead, and whatever party tricks the new recruit brings with him, or herself, no neighboring country is safe. Even with their armies standing ready, they have never trained to deal with this manner of threat. It was a view he'd aired before, but previously without the possibility of them re-entering the fray. Then it had been about hopes that the conventional would be ready and capable of defeating the unconventional, with an underlying fear that it would not. Now they were in the unenviable position of being the first line of defense, civilians who would face death in an unusually literal sense, so that soldiers might be spared the horrors of this new war. It was ironic, certainly, but not in any pleasurable way. There was no point in staying with Miss Virginia and her crew. They would be traveling in the wrong direction for the needs of the D-Society agents. One of the market trains, however, would take them back to the city from which they had so recently fled, and so they made arrangements to bed down amid fruit barrels in one of its freight cars. In the meantime, however, they would sample whatever delights Market Day had to offer and enjoy the show. At 10 minutes past 2, the carefully calculated tardiness being allowed to allow some anticipation to rise and also to give the slow crowd from the tavern time to show up, the era show began. Unlike the in medias res openings of the previous two, this began with a single entomopter sitting in the middle of the field, Miss Virginia's very own Spirit of 76. It had been the object of intense observation for the 40 minutes the crowd had been building, it being the closest almost all had ever been to such a machine. They admired its striking paintwork, commented upon the 4 thin wings, and speculated on the function of assorted struts, intakes, and flanges. The many conversations gave way to applause as Miss Virginia Montgomery walked onto the field and with practiced insouciance stood by the nose of her craft. Here the mechanic, Becky Whitten, arrayed in her cleanest, least frayed overalls, awaited her with an electric megaphone. Virginia took it with a polite nod and addressed the crowd in good German, made exotic to the listeners by a discernible American accent beneath it that hinted at the moon in June and mint juleps. She thanked them for their presence. She thanked them for their patience. She told them a little of her circus's history, and she promised them a show they would never forget. In the light of subsequent events, it was an unfortunate promise, not because it was unfulfilled, but because it was fulfilled all too well. At the conclusion of the little speech, timed to a nicety based on past experiences of slightly inebriated farmers, Miss Virginia returned the megaphone to Becky, exchanging it for a British Army surplus Very pistol. This she made a show of loading with a flare cartridge before raising it high and firing the White Star shell into the heavens. Even as the parachute flare was still rising, she'd handed the pistol back and was climbing into the cockpit of the big American two-seater. The canopy slammed shut, and Miss Virginia fired the engine before even strapping herself in, the pre-flight checks having been completed by Becky just before Miss Virginia made her grand entrance. Strictly, this was against protocol. The pilots should make their own pre-flight checks, as it's their own life on the line and ultimately their responsibility. That, however, would have undermined the drama of the moment, and in the open spaces traveled by a wandering circus, protocols are sometimes revised. Besides, Miss Virginia and the rest of the flying circus routinely put their lives in Becky's hands, and she had proved time and again that their faith was well-founded. As the engine, still warm from a short readying session earlier, wound up, the Anemopter's four insectile wings started to sweep in their complex figure-of-8 patterns. Slowly, as the clutch was only in its initiator setting, Miss Virginia finished strapping herself in, pulled the cinches until they were just the right side of comfortable, and gave Becky a thumbs-up signal. Becky quickly returned the signal before raising the reloaded pistol and firing a second flare. This one exploded into a flickering green light in the clear sky. Floating away on its parachute, borne by a light breeze, the sense of growing immediacy conveyed to the crowd by these actions was no mere stagecraft. 2 miles away in either direction, Anemopters waited in distant fields. On sighting the first flare, they fired their engines and stood by to lift. On the second, they rose vertically, their wings whirling. Up to a height of 50 feet they climbed, nose down to allow the wings to provide more forward motion, and accelerated hard towards the showground. As their airspeed increased, they started to develop transitional lift, allowing them to bring the nose down still further, turning more and more of the wings' blur into a headlong hurtle. In their wakes, grass bowed and boughs shook violently. On they came, Mink and Daisy from the northwest, Dia Boom from the southeast, flying hard and sharp, the nap of the earth flashing below them, reflected in the gleaming gloss finishes of their fuselages. Smooth, now the landing gears had all been retracted within seconds of launch. Ahead of them they could see the showground growing so large, so quickly, the green flares still falling off to the west, beyond the crowd's left flank. There would be no place for any seat-of-the-pants flying here. Their lives depended on everyone staying exactly to plan. No extemporization and no showboating while a sister pilot was in the same arena. Every anemopter had its reflector sight up and active, all the better to focus the pilot on their craft's heading. The sights, angled panes of glass onto which a targeting receptacle was projected via the offices of an optical collimator, beam splitter, and a little engineering ingenuity, thereby allowing a true sighting without parallax problems, where artifacts of the C-1650's operational past, but being slightly superseded by the C-188's model, they had not been stripped out when the Anemopters were decommissioned. It almost felt like a kindness for the old war horses. Now, where once abandoned Anemopters would have filled the site's reticulated fields, now they centered on an ally, in this case, Miss Virginia, that they might better avoid her at the last moment. Avoid her they did, to screams of shock and horror from the crowd, who only saw the closing aircraft at the last moment and barely had time to fear a four-way collision before the moment had passed and the fright was washed away by relief and laughter and applause. The 3 members of the D Society had some of the best seats in the house, having climbed onto the roof of the train's sleeper carriage to watch. the rhythmic tightening of fearful anticipation, followed by the release of the tension as stunt after stunt was performed with the almost supernatural panache of the highly practiced professional, also served to take some of the society members' own tensions, and they found themselves able to forget the Ministerium Tenebra for a little while at least. "Just as well they started when they did," noted the Major. "The weather's closing in. Probably start raining in an hour or two." "Is it?" said Professor Stone. He looked to the slight breeze, but all he could see were a few high clouds. "Looks clear to me." "You're looking in the wrong way, Professor," laughed the Major. "Over there." And he pointed to the west. The Professor looked and then climbed to his feet. "How extraordinary," he said under his breath. There did seem to be a storm coming after all. An angry thunderhead, so dense it appeared almost black, was rolling in from the west. It was vast, yet still seemed dwarfed by the even greater extent of clear sky around it. As they watched, a curious effect could be discerned around its edges. A violet miasma seemed to follow the cloud, yet not necessarily be a part of it, as if there was an after-image around it, or the cloud was overlaid upon a slightly larger colored version of itself. "That," said Professor Stone with certainty, "is not natural." "Good Lord," said Major Haskins, as he and Alicia joined the professor on their feet. "It's moving against the wind. Look at the other clouds." He was right. The other strands of cumulus, too reedy to suggest rain, were at a similar altitude to the storm head, yet they were running dead against its direction of travel. Indeed, the storm seemed to be bringing its own winds with it. They watched as one of the pale natural clouds ran close by the dark mass and was progressively torn into nothing by violent yet thoroughly localized turbulence. Over the showground, Dia and Mink were engaged in a mock dogfight while their two comrades flew in a wide circle around the conflict. Dia had just performed a textbook rolling scissors maneuver to come in on Mink's tail, while Becky bellowed out a commentary through the megaphone for the benefit of anyone who wasn't just staring, eyes wide and jaw loose, at the display. Dia was intended to trigger a pyrotechnic roughly equivalent to a string of very large firecrackers in a trick box attached to her fuselage at this point to suggest the rattle of a mini-cannon, to which Mink would respond by firing a smoke cartridge clipped to the tail boom to represent damage, after which she would limp pathetically from the field or to combat before setting up her approach for the next set piece. Instead, Dia Boom performed a split S maneuver to disengage. Unable to hear if the firecrackers had gone off or not over the roar of her engine, Mink triggered her smoke cartridge anyway and performed her aerial version of the Dying Swan, despite her attacker having passed up the chance to fire. Instead, Dia headed west. Becky paused her narration of the life-and-death struggle in mid-sentence. Dropping the megaphone, she took up the very pistol at her feet, shoved in a new flare, and fired it into the sky. This one was red, indicating the display had gone awry, and all pilots were to scramble for clear air before regrouping. As the other aircraft separated and staged north of the showground, Becky took up the megaphone and said, with not a sign that this was all anything but planned, "And there we see Miss Dia Boom and Buzz Bomb perform a perfect split-S disengagement, allowing Miss Mink to escape with her dignity intact," she added in an electrically boosted sotto voce. Although perhaps not her tail plane, she pointed at the smoke trail, and the crowd laughed, even while they tried to figure out the joke. In the air, Miss Virginia was furious. The show had gone beautifully so far, and to have one of the real crowd pleasers fall apart like that was madly frustrating. She did not, however, hold Dia Boom responsible, at least not without proof of wrongdoing. Her first thought was a mechanical failure, and Dia had broken off from the stage combat for safety's sake. That still didn't explain what was so fascinating about the western horizon, though. In any case, they couldn't progress without Buzzbomb rejoining the formation, so Miss Virginia testily signaled to Daisy to form up into a staggered V and to pass the message. It was hardly necessary. They had flown so long together that they could almost foretell one another's thoughts. As soon as the Queen of the Desert was in position on the Spirit of 76's starboard aft quarter, Striking Dragon was taking position in the port aft, still trailing the last of the smoke from its canister. Dia-Boom was behaving oddly, simply flying back and forth, northeast to southwest, and back again as they approached. Perhaps a mile beyond, the landscape grew dark under the shadow of the thunderhead. They had all noticed it in the air, but had all discounted it as being too far to be a problem during the display. It seemed to have come on toward the town with strange rapidity, they now realized. Miss Virginia signaled to her wing women to fall back as she flew on alone to parallel Dia. At a range of perhaps 10 feet between the respective wingtips, a short conversation in mime took place. Miss Virginia pulled an exaggeratedly mystified face and mouthed, "What?" Dia pointed down and replied, "Look." Miss Virginia opened some space, dropped back, and lost a little height before winging over enough to see the ground. All she could see were fields, probably with cabbages in the majority. She'd seen a lot of those over the previous 2 days. Cabbage fields with scarecrows and nothing else. She was just realizing that she didn't remember seeing any scarecrows at all on her crop spraying jobs. And did they really need this many? When she saw one stumble on the rough, open ground and fall. It got back to its feet slowly, watching her circling anemopter with a slow, almost mechanical turn of the head, then continued walking toward the town, the showground, and the train. Zombies, hundreds of them, arranged in a ragged line a mile wide. "Oh, God," said Miss Virginia Montgomery. "My dear God." And the shadow of the clouds swept across her then, across all the anemopters, but it was less an occlusion of light and more a spreading of dark. Where it fell, the air itself held a tint of horrible, thin shade of violet that has no place in any world upon which one might want to bring up children. It was alien and unwholesome, smelling of dread and tasting of madness. It bloomed across the town, the showground, and the train. At 14:35, and the sun up, and storming down rays of purifying light that pitter-pattered hopelessly upon the darkness, the vampire, Brothers Cabal, awoke. He awoke in fear and mourning for a death too close, and with tears filling his eyes, he awoke with the name of his brother, Johannes, on his lips. That's chapter 10. Fun stuff. So yeah, Horst is having, this is why I said the last book, The Dreamlands, and this one are, it's a frame of reference story, but it's also happening concurrently with the events of the Dreamlands, partially. Because Horst starts basically seeing what Johannes is up to in his own dreams. And I am out of water, maybe you're right. Time to crack open this monster. That was really satisfying. It opens so slowly. I don't know why. Thank you for the compliment. I like to read a lot, so. And I like reading to other people. I actually found a picture of me in like some old stuff. And it was a really old picture of me reading a book to my dog when I was very young. The only friend I had when I was younger was like a chocolate lab named Hershey. and she's the only one that listened to me when I talked. So I was just reading a book to her, and I remember that so clearly. I didn't know there was a picture of it, but there is a picture of me reading to my dog. So I have been reading to people for a long time, but most of them never listened up until, a year ago. I'll put it in there. Because I was trying to find something. I was looking for something and I couldn't find it. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I was going through some stuff and I found a bunch of old pictures and I was like, didn't know that was here. Good night, Insomniac. Yeah, so fun stuff. So yeah, shit's about to go down at the flying circus. It really sucks they didn't get to complete their maneuver, because I feel like they do a good job of explaining what the show looks like how choreographed it is. And it's very synchronized to the point where this would be the equivalent of if you were working on a stage show, and instead of coming on stage when their cue came, they were just out back pointing at the doorway. That doesn't happen. No, that just does not happen. Oof. Yeah, Insomniac needs to sleep. Yeah, I've had a lot of trouble recently. Yeah, we should be sleeping every night. It's not a competition. I say we try and do the reverse. It's a competition of how much all of us can sleep if we try really hard, because that's the achievement, is when you get to sleep a whole lot. I'm trying my best and it's not working. I feel like I'm losing the sleep game. I'm so tired. So tired this week. That ended badly. What? Maybe would immediately win. I feel like maybe be sleeping the most. Maybe is the healthiest person among us. Somehow. Even though they drink more Monster, I think, than anybody else. I wish we prioritized sleep more as a general fact of society. I feel like I feel like we could be a bit more like France. Hear me out. Here's where I'm going with this. I feel like we need to be a bit more like France. And what I mean by that is, in France, nobody gives a shit if you're late. Time is a suggestion in France. Schedules, suggestion. Their workers go on strike all the time. This is sounding like I'm trying to bring down society. I'm not. What I just think that the French aren't afraid to strike if they're not getting paid enough. There's no oh, well, you're just going to keep showing up and doing your job and you're just going to complain about it. But you get 2-hour lunches in France. They all have health care. What do you mean? France is doing great. Everybody likes to beat on France. I say the French are a great example of everything that we need to try harder to be like. They prioritize themselves. If they're late, they're late. You're going to get there when you get there. It doesn't matter. Who cares? I feel like this whole oh, I'm going to be late frame of mind for society needs, I think we could be a little bit more lenient on it. I am never on time. If you tell me to be someplace, it is going to be 7-ish as a time. Like if you 7-ish is what I think you mean. And that can mean anywhere from 6:45 to fucking 7:30. Like, it's never gonna be the time. That is how I operate. And I'm really glad my boss knows that, because he does not care. Like, if I'm not there like 30 minutes after my shift, he'll be like, okay, where are you at? What are you doing? Are you okay? But like, if it's any time before that, and then sometimes I just show up early and he's like, it's 4:30. And I'm like, yeah, I made my coffee and I got ready too early and now I don't know what to do. So I'm here now. Like, I'm never there when I'm supposed to be though. It's always either too early or I'm 30 minutes late. There's no in between. You can fall asleep when you drink a Monster. I have literally drank an energy drink before and then taken a nap. And then woke up and felt real weird about it. You'll fall asleep if you drink coffee? That's good. Then it's a good bedtime drink. If I could drink coffee right before I went to bed. Is there like something that works the opposite that wakes you up? Or is it just like there's just no energy for you ever? Because that would kind of suck. But I'd like to think it's like the opposite. You know what I mean? Like you drink sleepy time tea and then you're super jazzed for the rest of the day. Sleeping after? The best. Hi. Nothing gives energy. Energy is a lie. Well, we know Swiftblood's having a time today. Whatever you're going through right now, Swiftblood, I empathize. I'm sorry that you have to do that. That you're going through that. I'm sorry about X Factor that is really bringing down your life right now, apparently, maybe. I think just your general responses make me think something's up, so it's supposed to be calming, and it depends on, like, regular Southern... That's what I was about to say. I was like, it depends on the kind of tea. NyQuil wakes you up? Oh, that is so not cool. Okay, wait. Can I ask, can you take Benadryl? Can you take Benadryl, Ray? What does Benadryl do? Because look, from the way that this is going, it's either going to put you in a straight coma or Benadryl is going to be like being on bath salts or something. I don't know. Bath salts. Okay. No, I'm joking. Then it's a good sleepy time drink. You drink it before you go to sleep. Melatonin doesn't work for me anymore either. The only problem with melatonin is because I used to rely on it heavily when I was younger, like when I was like in high school. Sorry about that. And I would take it, and the only problem is that you build up an immunity after a while. It's sort of like any other kind of tolerance, really. But the more you intake of it, the more you need to secure its effect. So if you take so many milligrams, after a while, you won't respond as you used to. And it's the same thing with caffeine. Like, if you drink too much caffeine, you'll have to continuously drink more to gain the same effect that you had from the original amount. than when you first tried it. And so you keep trying to chase that amount because it'll ensure the result that you want. But all you're doing is building up a tolerance that makes it harder and harder to obtain. And melatonin can have severe side effects whenever you take too much of it and you start building up a tolerance. And it can actually eventually make you not sleep. Melatonin. We're talking about melatonin tolerance. Because if you take too much melatonin, strange, it doesn't work anymore. And then you can't use it. And then you're just taking melatonin and it makes everything worse. And anyway, you have to keep taking more and more of it. It's terrible. So then you have to wean yourself off of it. But then you almost have withdrawals where you're just like not able to fall asleep. I'll never take melatonin again because I used to try and do that when I was younger, when I would have sleeping problems too, and it did not work. It doesn't work the way that you think it will. Yeah, like you have to either consume it in a stronger fashion or intake more of it in a short amount of time. Because also its effects are spread out. If you do drink more of it, you have to make sure that you drink more of it within a set period of time. So if you're just trying to drink more coffee, then you would have to do it within a certain amount of time. I just add more espresso to mine. I'm tired. I'll feel anything until the third one, but yeah, because at that point, then you're also drinking 3 Monsters. And sure, does it have caffeine and energy in it? Yeah, but it also has a bunch of other stuff, like additives and sugar that you're also consuming. So you also have to take that into account with whatever you consume. You're also adding up on all those other chemicals that you're intaking. And if you're drinking a bunch of sugar every day in conjunction, well, eventually that's also going to catch up to you. You know what I mean? Oh, you drink the ultra ones so they don't have it. Oh, okay. That's good. It's a good option because that's always my concern when I drink. Like when I get too reliant on energy drinks or something like that is my sugar intake. Because it's never good sugars. It's never like natural sugars. It's always like additive sugars. And I also just don't react well to sugar, so I'm very conscious of if I'm consuming too much of it. Because I don't like a lot of sweet stuff, and the sweeter something is, Bang is like torture to me. I cannot drink a Bang. Every single time, Sarah keeps surprising me with Bang and stuff. It's not funny. It's never funny. He'll like have his cup on the counter and he's like, here, taste this. And I try it not thinking. A lot of the time he'll do this right when I wake up, so I don't see the trick before it happens. You know, I'm not cognizant enough to do that. So then I take a sip and I'm like, the f*** is that? And he's like, it's Bang. And I was like, why would you give me Bang? It is 7 a.m. No. Mina's here. Kirishima's here. How many people we got in here? What? Betrayal. Bang, yes. Bang is too sweet. I'm calling it unpopular opinion. I don't care. Well, that was a Monster, wasn't it? Didn't you drink a Monster? You didn't drink a Bang. I will still say it's all battery acid. No, I have not. Carbonated water energy drink. All right. It's 10 minutes till. We're going to do this thing. Who's ready for the next chapter, chapter 11? I do not have a caffeine water stash. Is this a plot? Is this another plot to caffeinate me in different ways? Are you going to get me caffeinated water next? I'm very confused. Yes, twos in the chat. All right. Yeah, baby. Okay, we're going to read chapter 11. If you're here and you don't know what we're doing, I read you a story. We're on the Brothers Cabal, but there were 3 other books in the story, so if you're jumping in now, you might get confused. You might want to hop over to the YouTube and watch the other 3 books, which are on the YouTube, and you can listen to them for free with me, your guide. It's your boy, Shinzo. I read you a book. I read you 3 books. And then you come back here, and then I'll read you some more. Anyway, but that's what we're doing. So if you don't know, now you know. Time to be confused. Okay. And we're on chapter 11 of this one. Chapter 11, in which the hammer falls. It was daytime. It was impossible. Dark. Overcast. In some way he couldn't quite understand, but it was daytime. Horst threw open the door and leaned heavily on the jamb as he tried to take in what was happening in the confused world outside. The first thing that didn't happen was that he didn't burst into flames. Sunlight was falling on him, but its purifying power to remove spiritual aberrations like him from the world and a fount of dust and agony was gone, but for a slight, unpleasant prickling. It was as if the sun's ferocity had been somehow drained away, and this was all it could do to discomfort him, like receiving impolite personal comments in the post from a great white shark. He could almost feel the frustration in it. The sun was up, but it looked the wrong color. Not how he remembered it at all, but everything looked wrong. The grass and trees looked diseased. The people at the showground were washing around, making a dull roar. The sky seemed strange and alien, dominated by a great cloud that, he noted with the disinterest of the otherwise distressed, was moving against the wind. Somebody said, "Horst?" And for a moment he thought the voice was in his own head, a filament of the confusion that swirled there, but then he heard it again and looked up. Alicia was standing directly over him, looking down from the carriage roof, astonishment written in her expression. "How are you awake?" she demanded. "It's only mid-afternoon." He tried to speak, but there were too many things going on inside his head, an inability to talk to somebody whose head appeared upside down from his current position being too much to process in his disrupted intellect at the moment. He jumped down, took a couple of steps, and turned. Yes, that was much better. Now she was the right way up, and had a body standing on the train carriage roof, and so helped him anchor down his sanity a little in the high wind that was blowing through his mind. "I don't know. Something's wrong." The prickling of the ineffectual sun made his shoulders twitch at the formication. "Everything's wrong. What's happening? What's happening to me?" "Johannes, he's going to die." He swung drunkenly about to face the showground, thoughts boiling in cascades of irrelevance in his head. He could see one of the anemopters was landing, the Spirit of 76. He could identify it by its silhouette, while the others milled in a stack. He couldn't see what was happening through the mass of the crowd for the next few seconds, but his grasp on time was reduced to events rather than progressions, and he knew only that it took as long for the next thing to happen as it took him to crouch on the gravel, close his eyes, and try to squeeze the pandemonium from his thoughts. Then he heard Miss Virginia Montgomery's electrically amplified voice crackle out over the lowing of the crowd, and he raised his head to listen, but kept his eyes shut. This refracted version of reality, he had discovered, was less upsetting when one didn't have to look at it. "Ladies and gentlemen," came her voice, distant and echoed, Please disperse from this area as quickly and safely as you can. Do not go to the west. I'm sorry. The crowd were suddenly, if understandably, restive. I'm sorry, there is no time for explanations, but the town is in danger and must be abandoned immediately. Still, nothing happened. The crowd did not disperse, nor panic, nor do anything of import but mutter and wonder aloud amongst itself whether this was all part of the show. The lack of action was obviously clear to Miss Virginia, too, judging by her uncompromising tone when the megaphone clicked back into life. Zombies, okay? Zombies. There are several hundred zombies closing on the town from the west. You think that cloud overhead is natural? You think a little traveling air show like ours can do a thing like that? Get your asses out of town and just make sure you're heading east, northeast, or southeast. Just so long as it's got east in it, you should be okay. They're not fast, but they're not nice, and they will be here in maybe quarter of an hour. So move. Becky came running up, heading for the locomotive. When she saw Horst, she stopped and gawped at him. You're out! In the day! I thought... Somebody said you were... He is, Alicia called down to her. We've seen something like that cloud before. This one's 50 times the size, though. Do you need help getting the engine going? The firebox is lit, said Becky. We are planning on leaving as soon as the show is over. It'll take us a while to get moving, though. How long to load up the entomopters? Becky shook her head. They're flying on. We'll meet up with them on the line. Yes, I could use your help. And without waiting for a reply, she carried on running for the locomotive, Alicia heading there too along the carriage steps. Mr. Cabal, said the Major as he stepped off the roof access ladder and dropped down onto the tracks. We may need to defend the train, both against these creatures when they get here and before that from people wishing to leave the town. Horst forced his thoughts into some sort of order and rose painfully to his feet, the weight of the light bearing down upon him. We can take a good few, he said, feeling and sounding sick and weary. Room on the freight cars. If we can, we should. The Major looked off at the crowd, who finally seemed to have been motivated by the possibility of being chewed upon by the recently dead. Unhappily, Miss Virginia's motivational technique had also generated a degree of panic. However, her bellowed commands to walk, just walk, there's zombies for crying out loud, if you start walking now, you'll outpace them, you do not need to run, seemed to take the wind out of many a putative hysteria. Haskins nodded. You're right, of course, old chap, we should take everyone we can. The whole point of the D Society is to protect the commonplace world against supernatural threats. Just not very used to doing it quite so publicly. He and the professor set off to winnow out those from the crowd, now belatedly heading eastward in a great confused flock who could not make good time. There was no panic, just a lot of confused people who were given to understand that going that way was preferable to going the other way. They had heard the words several, hundred, and zombies, all of which were individually incomprehensible. Even country folk had heard about zombies. They might call them by other local names, but when the newspapers spoke of a necromancer being strung up somewhere or another for crimes against humanity, God, and nature, the usual generally acknowledged term for the frightful monstrosities that the criminal had raised from the slumber of cold clay was zombie. They tended to be individual, however. An undead servitor shuffling around an isolated house, or a mute killer created for the excess purpose of revenge, or, in one infamous case, a children's entertainer. The idea that anyone would have the resources and the will to raise not one or two or a dozen or 100, but hundreds of zombies was beyond the ken of the common mind. Thus, they were unable to entirely digest the threat at anything beyond a superficial level. The situation was dreamlike, the response faux somnambulistic. As the walking dead shambled in from the west, so the walking living shambled out to the east. Horst pushed his way through the crowd to reach the showground as quickly as he dared, the discomfort of the daylight threatening to distract him from the limits of human resilience. It would be far too easy to inadvertently elbow somebody's sternum through to their spine in a moment of absent-mindedness. By the time he reached the ground's railing, he was more worried about doing it advertently. They were a flock, he saw now. Stupid sheep on 2 legs with vacant expressions, stinking of sweat and beer, and the only good thing about them beating in their arteries. 3 days he had gone without blood, 3 long days, and here he was, surrounded by ambulatory bags of the stuff. He clenched his jaws and tried not to listen to the voice that was quietly but insistently pointing out that what with all this chaos and a wave of undead killers closing in, a sheep or 2 could go missing from this flock, and none would put the blame anywhere but with the zombies. It was tempting. It was sorely tempting. He leapt the rail easily and ran for Miss Virginia. She was just climbing back into the cockpit as he reached her, burning a little more of his strength away to blur through the distance. When he appeared by the entomopter, she started with surprise. "Dear God, boy, you can move," she snapped to cover her startlement as much as to air the obvious. "How far away are they?" "Less than a mile now," she frowned. "Ain't you supposed to burst into flames or something?" He looked up at the cloud. "I did last time I was cut out in the sun," he agreed. "That thing, however, is changing the rules." "In a good way?" I think waking me up is just a little side effect. Last time we saw a cloud like that, flying acid-dripping limb things came out and tried to kill us." Miss Virginia glanced apprehensively at the cloud. She remembered the encounter with the creatures that attacked the train a few nights previously all too well. The thought of being under a swarm of things that dripped acid was unappealing. "I have to get airborne," she said abruptly, and finished climbing into the cockpit. As she strapped herself in, she said, "You better get going, too. Once Becky gets a head of steam up, she won't be hanging around." Horst didn't answer. He was watching a tatterdemalion of a figure walking across a field not even a quarter of a mile away. The vanguard of the dead was almost upon them. "I'm going to try and give her the time she needs," he said, and then he was gone. As he sped, conserving his strength so that he merely traveled at an impressive sprint rather than an impossible blur, he was already asking himself questions about what was to happen. Was he right in thinking that zombies would provide less of a challenge than were-badgers and acid-dripping weird things? He certainly hoped so. There was an awful lot of them coming. Was the cloud there as some sort of enabling mechanism for the approaching horde, or was it going to be spitting out further examples of otherworldly fauna before long? From his perspective, the former was certainly the more preferable, but he didn't really believe it for a moment. And finally, were the zombies so far gone that he couldn't drink from them? Whether the answer to that was yes or no, he couldn't tell yet, but he was sure that whatever the answer, he wouldn't like it. He leapt at the fence at the end of the showground, closest to the town, while still some 20 feet distant, landed on the uppermost bar with both feet, and powered himself into a broad jump with enough impetus that the wood was breaking as he left it. He sailed in a graceful arc that ended less gracefully in the lead zombie's chest. They went down in a shower of fetid viscera that assured Horst that zombies would not make good blood donors. And that was going to have to find yet another change of clothing shortly. He stood for a moment up to his shins in complaining revenant and wondered how he should proceed. He could see the untidy picket line of zombies now, only a couple of 100 yards away, their wide spacing narrowing as they converged to close on the showground and the town, and confined by the strictures of the terrain. At the moment, they were too far apart to offer immediate aid to one another if one were attacked. No, that was saying too much for their motivations. They would not come to one another's aid, but they would move to attack anybody they saw, and if that somebody happened to be fighting another zombie at the time, the effect would be much the same. While he might be able to take on one, two, or several simultaneously, he didn't fancy his chances if he ended up layered in them. Speed, then, was of the essence, but speed cost him blood, and his reserves were low. He looked at the retreating crowd, now draining down the highways and byways of the east to the town, like the dregs of a popular uprising after the military show up. They were stragglers, he saw. Nobody would notice the loss of one. Then he saw that the stragglers were in fact being shepherded and directed to the flying circus's train, and he felt ashamed. Alicia, Major Haskins, and Professor Stone were helping those who could not escape quickly enough by reason of age or handicap, usually attended by desperate family, while Horst had been wondering who would make a suitable meal. He saw Haskins lift an old woman and run as fast as he could to take her to the relative safety of the train, while the zombies grew ever closer. There was steam rising from the locomotive already. Becky had managed to build pressure quickly, and the locomotive probably had enough to get underway. Yet it waited while the D-Society agents did their work. It was selfless and heroic, and Horst felt more angry with himself than he had ever felt before. "Out," he said to the wheedling voice within, the voice of a predation and depravity whose tone he had at first had trouble telling from his own. Now he could taste the inhumanness of it on his tongue, and it made him want to spit with revulsion. "Out! I am done with you. You are what the Ministerium Tenebra believed to be me. You are what I am not. Out! Be quiet! I am done with you." And as if to underline the intensity of his feelings and the sincerity of his intent, he blurred at a vision, reappearing beside a zombie some 100 yards away, and punched its jaw into the next field. Presently, the rest of the skull followed. Alicia paused in her efforts to get as many as possible aboard the train. She had feared Becky, working alone, wouldn't be able to get the train ready quickly enough, but the crew of one of the other trains in the sidings were helping in return for passage away from the oncoming army. Alicia was just wondering if it was time to break out the heavy guns to deal with the first wave of attack when she saw zombies starting to explode without the aid of explosives. For a moment she thought that the gases of putrefaction were overwhelming them in some sort of chain reaction whose mechanism evaded her, yet gave the satisfying sight of zombies blowing apart as if it were an open day in a pinata test facility. Then she saw Horst, besmirched in gore, magically appear beside a couple of the attackers and divest one of its head and a quantity of spinal cord, which he then used to belabor its partner into a ruin of pulped flesh and pulverized bone in a few furious blows. Assured neither were likely to be getting up again, he flickered from sight once more. "I'm very glad he's on our side," said the professor, pausing by her side. "You did a good job persuading him to come over to the side of virtue." "Persuade him?" She laughed. "I shot him a couple of times and he forgave me. He never needed any persuasion." "Ow!" This last as she observed a zombie thrown into the trunk of a proud old elm hard enough to leave an imprint in the bark. Horst stopped to rest, leaning against a tool shed at the side of a wheat field. It wasn't much of a rest. He didn't need a pause nearly so much as he needed to drink. He couldn't understand why the Ministerium hadn't sent any of their shape-changers. Their blood was entirely acceptable, and their ethics so abominable that he only experienced the smallest regret when feeding on them. Perhaps that was why they hadn't sent any, to deny him of sustenance. So Lady Misericord had dispatched her army, and he was aware of the awful possibility that this was not the entirety of it, and it seemed they had their precious Lord of Powers, with his unusual cloud formations. "Cumulonemesis," said Johannes Cabal. "It's called cumulonemesis. There are a surprising number of supernatural weather conditions. This was no more than the truth, he himself having personally encountered the bone wind, as well as an ill-starred meeting with the monstrous genius who created the flesh-dissolving, soul-devouring red snow. This one hadn't performed its party trick yet, whatever that happened to be, assuming that it was ever intended to do anything but fly against the wind and glower. He considered the possibility that it was simply a way of corralling the zombies around. Where the cloud went, they followed. That would certainly make sense given the available evidence. Perhaps, he hoped, that was the limit of the cloud's threat. He was just about to re-embark on his zombie-splashing exploits when something fell from the cloud. It thudded to earth some 50 feet from him at the edge of the wheat, throwing soil in a halo around it. Horst wasn't sure what it was meant to be. At first glance, it was as if a lover of classical art had struck a blow by pushing a modern sculpture over the railing from a passing aeroship. It stood comfortably over 2 yards, high on 3 supports, and seemed to be made of metal, and as a result was really quite heavy. He looked at the sculpture, all organic curves and enigmatic holes where it stood at the edge of the field, an impromptu installation by a guerrilla sculptor. Apparently, the Ministerium Tenebra had decided to conquer the region using the usual twin-pronged attack of zombies and avant-garde artwork. Then the piece of sculpture lifted itself on its 3 supports and shook itself in a remarkably dog-like action, scattering off the clods of damp earth thrown up on impact that had stuck to its skin. Horst realized with both wonder and horror that the sculpture was nothing of the sort. It was a machine, yet it was living. Some sort of evolved device from some alternate plane or strange dimension where people had been altogether too indulgent of their toasters and the consumer durables had inherited their earth. As if it knew it was being watched, the machine stumped around on... He could no longer think of them as supports. Its 3 legs and regarded him somehow. For there were no obvious eyes. There was an intelligence in that regard Horst did not care for, and he was aware of a great hatred, as if he had just said something derogatory about Henry Moore while standing by one of his works, and it had taken umbrage. For his part, Horst did not like the look of the thing either, not so much on an aesthetic level. He was actually quite fond of the modern art, but with respect to the resilience necessary to survive a drop from a couple of 100 feet, the hardness of skin to disregard the impact, the mass to make 3 small craters where the supports, the legs, had came down, and the likelihood that should the creature, for surely it was of some sort, have anything analogous to veins and arteries beneath that skin, it would likely be at best machine oil, and at worst mercury. Neither represented a decent meal for Horst should he manage to vanquish it. The thing moved a little closer with the careful step of a bird-eating spider. Horst slid down the side of the shed away from it, never taking his eyes from it as he moved. The thing took another step, a step that was cautious only in the way a predator not wishing to alarm its prey is. Horst backed away still further. It was like being stalked by an obelisk, and he did not care for the sensation at all. A part of him, not the cynical, monstrous part that seemed to have gone, or perhaps was only waiting for an opportunity to return when his defenses were down, or, alternatively, was off in a corner of his psyche somewhere, sulking after being harshly spoken to, wondered just how a man like him ends up in a situation like this. He had always imagined himself becoming something that doesn't involve too much work, like a poet or a speculator, being endlessly fascinating to an endless stream of delightful girls. Eventually, he would have become a silver fox sort of gentleman, and so ended his days chasing nurses. It wasn't the most evolved or ambitious of careers, but it had the undoubted advantage of a great deal of female company, yet here he was, a vampire, a long way from home, being menaced in a field by statuary. How could such a thing come to pass? How could he have missed his mark in life so very, very thoroughly? Then he remembered his brother, and all became immediately clear. He didn't think of his brother's miraculous ability to turn everything on its head with rancor. That would be like railing against the wind for blowing or water for being so very wet. He simply accepted it with an inner nod and a philosophical, "Oh, that's why." He also realized what he had known at some psychic level for the past few days of restless sleep, that somehow his brother was still alive, although, possibly, in some hue of peril. This surprised him only rationally. Emotionally, he had found it easier to accept. Johannes should have been suffering eternal torment in hell by this point, even if he had dodged the particular damnation Horst had anticipated at the close of the Cabal Brothers Carnival, according to Lady Misericord. Yet it seemed he wasn't, if Horst's curious, deathly dreams were to be believed, and he did believe them. There were some things he'd come to accept about being a creature from a nightmare, and one of them was that when he experienced odd things like this, he should pay them credence. He still had humanly hunches, just as he ever had, but he knew those might lead him astray, just as they ever had. These more supernatural senses, however, he had come to trust. All very interesting, he told himself, and something to ponder on some time after he had managed to escape the attentions of a large metallic thing, which might be alive in some sense. A couple of 100 yards away, something else large, dense, and distinctly not of the earth, fell in the middle of the wheat field with a resounding thud that Horst felt through his feet before the sound reached him. Further local seismic activity told him that shortly he would be surrounded by enough of the things to fill a notably dangerous gallery of very challenging artwork. The statue thing, perhaps startled into activity by the arrival of its colleagues, leapt at Horst, a maneuver that in terms of being unexpected was on par with being pounced upon by a smallish stately home. A human would probably have ended as puree beneath the massive form, but Horst was not as human as he used to be, and while the thing's legs shoved several inches into the ground as the impetus grew to launch it, he was already reacting. By the time it landed, it was to find that Horst was no longer there. One of its legs tore a long splintered scar through the wall of the shed, and, as being slightly in the way, was apparently regarded as an unforgivable crime in whichever dimension the creature had been summoned from. It spent the next half a minute smashing the rest of the shed into matchwood, using a strange dance of destruction that positively reeked of petulance. Horst, meanwhile, was making himself a scarce resource in that part of the field. He ran slower than was his wont, because he didn't wish his last memories to be of cutting a new furrow with his mouth after a high-speed fall, immediately followed by something that looked like it had just been spawned by Stonehenge jumping on his back. It was one thing to be humiliated, another to die horribly, but he was damned if he'd do both simultaneously. He tore to a halt in the shower of earth and wheat ears somewhere in the middle of the field. Before him lay something like a solid wheel, but as if taken from a huge toy automobile. It was black, sleek, and shiny, fat and rounded, a regular transverse ridge pattern, making him think of a tire's tread. It was also large, wider than a man was tall, and chest-high to him. His first thought was that perhaps it was an abandoned wheel from some farm vehicle of the sort that he'd heard of before he became a vampire. That was years ago now. Perhaps they were common these days, and much bigger than he'd anticipated. That these poor farmers were able to afford such a machine seemed unlikely, however, which troubled him, as did the shininess of it, betoken newness. When the tire started to uncurl itself, he realized that the tread was actually the ridges between body segments, and that he was watching an unreasonably large woodlouse in action. It found the soil with its multitude of legs, arranged itself for movement and swung its front end around to face Horst as if scenting him. Its face was far less insect-like than he was expecting. Two very mammalian eyes mounted in a skull-like head, but for the complex mouth parts that jutted spastically, vertically, horizontally, and on the diagonals, regarded him with an expression of concentrated malevolence. That didn't mean it actually was malevolent, he reminded himself. It wasn't the creature's fault that it looked like that, after all. Perhaps it was actually just being friendly. Then he noticed it was starting to drool, and with the best will in the world, decided that he was being optimistic. The giant woodlouse reared up on a multitude of legs, waving another multitude in the air, and champing its mouth parts together like a topographically challenged horse. By the time it struck, Horst was already moving out of the way. Not really as quickly as he would have liked, however. His reserves were finally dry. His attempt to run away and not stop until he had passed through at least 3 international borders finished less than 10 feet away with him wallowing weakly in a furrow. The great woodlouse reared again, spitting soil from its mouth with far less concern and far greater ability than Horst could manage, reacquired him as a target, and prepared to strike again. Horst floundered his way behind a row of wheat in the desperate hope that the stalks might interfere with its vision. It was a thin sort of hope, but he was suddenly so enervated he wasn't even sure he could stand unaided. The weakness was terrifying in itself, but the timing of it didn't help affairs. He remembered suffering from flu back when such things bothered him, and being left so weak that he had to crawl across the room. This was worse. There was none of the sense of his muscles trying to do the job they usually did so easily yet failing. Instead, there was nothing to call upon at all. His arms felt boneless, afterthoughts stapled on at the shoulders by a slipshod creator. His legs flopped behind him, scrabbling slowly across the soil. The great louse was looking dead at him, those narrow, moist eyes clear and focused upon him, unperturbed by the intervening line of wheat. This, Horst concluded, was going to be a stupid and inglorious death. Hardly an uncommon state of affairs to humanity, but one he'd been hoping to avoid. If he had to go, something more noble than this. He'd done a decent job of dying the last time, but it seemed his encore would be perfunctory and nasty. Above the strange cloud rolled and shuddered as it dispatched more unearthly monstrosities to destroy the town, and, incidentally, those that it had been sent to kill. To his eye, it seemed to Horst that the cloud was no longer as large or as dense as it had been previously. He remembered how the much smaller cloud they had first encountered had vanished altogether after disgorging 6 monsters. Perhaps the same was happening here, but with a proportionately greater number. At some point, the cloud would be too thin to exert its curious ability to shield him from the usual effects of daytime and light upon him, which is to say, coma and combustion. Not that he'd be alive, in the vampiric sense, long enough to experience that. The great louse loomed, and Horst braced himself for the lightning-fast strike which would take him. And it came, not, however, from the louse. Unseen and unsuspected, the giant woodlouse had been stalked by the prowling sculpture. Now, in a flail of great rounded shapes with aesthetically placed holes here and there, it pounced upon its prey. The great louse went down in a jumble of art and anthropod. Horst crawled from the fight, trying to find his way back to the edge of the field. Somewhere, off to the other side of him, there was an odd sound, like a very large pair of scissors closing. Seconds later, half a zombie, bisected from crotch to crown, landed in a wet wave in front of him in much the same way a slice of bacon might be laid in the pan. It seemed to Horst that whatever the Lord of Powers had summoned were many and varied, and poorly briefed as to what they were supposed to be attacking. If any further proof were needed, another zombie walked by Horst a few seconds later, head down and furious of expression, death failing to mediate its displeasure at being covered in a pulsating slime, transparent and animate, that was visibly dissolving the flesh of the walking corpse. Horst dragged himself through the field, the sound of argumentative monsters filling the air as the attack on the town devolved rapidly into a free-for-all among the summoned and the raised. Staying low actually seemed to be the wisest thing to do, as well as the necessary thing to do, thanks to his legs feeling like overcooked noodles. Thus he crawled slowly and painfully through a battlefield of the dreadful, the fights between summoned and the attacks of the summoned upon the zombies. For the zombies never seemed to retaliate, this being outside their orders. Instead, they confined themselves to trying to struggle on despite eviscerations, amputations, and other nuisances. They did, however, look very cross by dead people standards while doing it, as if regarding the actions of the extra-dimensional tormentors as highly unprofessional. In this, Horst had to concede that they might have had a point. Whatever control the summoned creatures were under seemed either loose or perhaps their orders had been careless. Abruptly, the wheat thinned away, and he was at the edge of the field. He had managed to navigate in the right direction. Before him lay a country lane, the town off to his left, and dead ahead was the showground. Beyond it lay the train and sanctuary. Using the fence's support, he pulled himself to his feet and awkwardly between the bars. Now all he had to do was travel a quarter of a mile across open country with legs that weren't as reliable as he was used to. Then he saw the steam and smoke rising from the locomotive start to puff rhythmically, and he knew it was moving. His unrequited need for blood was dimming his sight, his senses dulling as they starved. But even through the growing attenuation of his hearing, he could hear the chuff of the engine as it headed for the main line. Despairing, he took a step and immediately fell. He tried to shout, but his voice was nothing but a croaking grasp in his throat. Behind him, he could hear things. What things they were, he had no idea. Moving closer. He started to crawl, but knew he couldn't outrun a hog-tied terrapin in his current state. He was abandoned, he was helpless, and he was doomed. An interlude. It should be pointed out that Horst's recollection of events necessarily skipped over some facts that he did not know or was unaware of, as mentioned at the beginning of this narrative, but also things that he decided not to mention, both for reasons of brevity or because he simply did not wish to talk about them. Into this latter category fell the inner conflict he had felt with his inhuman side. Johannes Cabal, however, was very at home to his inhuman side. Indeed, he was less welcoming to his human side. This gave him a certain understanding of the sensibilities of the unconventionally morale, and he had scented his brother's evasions throughout the telling. "Tell me, Horst," he said with studied nonchalance, "how is the vampire business going for you these days?" Horst was uncharacteristically dumbstruck. Eventually, he managed, "By which you mean?" "By which I mean that vampires, even those that were good men or women in their previous existences, are not pleasant company. There is a corruption of the spirit there, at least in the vast majority of cases. Have you felt within yourself any hints of such?" Horst said nothing, but simply seemed uncomfortable and avoided eye contact. "Oh, for heaven's sake," said Cabal. "We're talking about vampirism, not genital warts. I shall assume that you have been experiencing a desire to treat humanity as low and expendable. Horst swallowed. Yes, he said in a shamed whisper. It's horrible. Is it? Cabal was honestly surprised. I was about to say I sympathize entirely. That has long been my relationship with my fellow humans. I can see it would be an unpleasant experience to you, though. There is, however, a simple enough solution, although one that requires mental effort and discipline on your part. He indicated his eyes with a gesture of his index and middle fingers. Look at me. Horst did so, somewhat suspiciously. You're not going to try and hypnotize me, are you? That's rather more your forte than mine, said Cabal a little pointedly, as Horst realized that his mild manipulations of his brother's memories during the early stages of his convalescence had not gone as unnoticed as Horst had hoped. No, I simply want your full attention. Do I have it? Yes? Good. Then mark what I say and see in my face that there is no dissimulation or pettifogging. Horst, you are a good man. You have always been so, and your soul is an untrammeled thing indeed. Horst winced and interrupted. Ah, well, maybe not. There was that business with the lacrosse team. Now it was Cabal's turn to wince. Did anyone suffer? Oh, no, nothing like that. Was everyone happy? I flatter myself a little to think, yes. Everyone was very nice afterwards, anyway. Then shut up. In a world as grimy and sin-ridden as yours, you're a paragon precisely because your intentions are always good. Johannes, I killed a man. Pfft. Cabal expressed his opinion of that crime with a pursed lips and sharp exhalation. A man who has just killed once before your very eyes and was about to murder at least 3 more unless you intervened. I mean, Horst. A were-badger? He said it with leaden disdain. That was a mercy killing. You're a good man. I've seen evil. By many metrics, I am evil. I know what it looks like. You're not even similar. Remember that, brother. Let that be your bulwark against the impulses your condition imposes upon you. Horst sat, absorbing whatever wisdom he could draw from the words, or at least most of the words. Bulwark? He asked. Bulwark. Do you know what that is? I can look it up later. But thanks. Thank you, Johannes. Johannes Cabal fluttered his hand, reinforcing the humanity of a vampire being child's play, apparently. Now, kindly continue. You were just in a circumstance put which by your doom was assured. It was pretty desperate, said Horst, slightly miffed at his brother's lack of concern. But here you are telling me the tale. Really, Horst, you undermine all the tension of the narrative by being the storyteller. I know you survive. I can't help that, said Horst, and continued. And that's the end of chapter 11. That's it. Riot. You know he lives. Johannes just addressed it. He gets away. He's fine. He's fine, guys. He's fine. He does it. Spoiler, you live. Yeah. But I want to know how. All right. Knowing the ending isn't enough. We need to journey to it. Okay. You want more? I get you. Go join your swarm. So glad you all liked it. Cats. Yeah, cats. I got cats over here as a follow-up. Cats. Cats. Cat facts. Do we want to go ahead and dive into cats? Cats. Oh, shit. Okay, good night. Night, Dad. I gotta reconnect with you about the baby. Okay, cats because we're gonna tank afterwards. Got it. Okay. We're going over Barong. So we're gonna go ahead and knock it out. Barong is a mythical wildcat, similar to a panther, central to the mythology of Bali. The Western world primarily knows Bali as the setting of love in Eat, Pray, Love, and indeed, Bali is the most popular tourist destination among the 17,000 different islands that make up Indonesia. But its history goes back to at least 2000 BC, with Hindu culture taking root after that. Barong is part of the creation myth of a pantheon of Balinese deities that predates Hinduism on the island, and the people of Bali thought ideas and figures from their mythology into their burgeoning Hindu beliefs to form a special hybrid unique to Bali. Balinese people have a special ceremonial dance each year where Barong defeats evil in the form of Rangda, the queen of demons. And there's a picture. You can also look up the dance on YouTube. It's really neat. Anyway, that's Barong. Wildcat. It doesn't really look like a wildcat, though. To me. But the dance is really cool, and it's super neato. I highly advise you YouTube that. Anyway, but that's our special cat segment. So you all can tank if you need to. It does look rad. Yes, must dance with wildcats. Good night, Lady Aoife. Good night, everybody who needs to tank. I'm so jealous of you getting all this sleep, going and doing the sleep. I want to do the sleep. Why can't I do the sleep? Apparently, I haven't really been sleeping super well, and I keep doing this thing where I'm raising my arm in my sleep, and I don't know why. I was unconscious. I was doing this. I was told I was doing this. Dancing with wildcats. That would be an awesome job description. But yeah, I just keep raising my arms straight up like I'm raising my hand in class, and I do not know why I'm doing that. I wasn't conscious of me doing it. I've been told that I've done it numerous nights in a row. And I'm just like, why? Why would I do that? The YouTube dance is really cool. Seriously, look it up. They're really neat. Thank you for sleepy energy. I want to sleep. I want to use the sleep. Sleep would be really good. I really like sleep, and I wish I got more. And I've been super sleepy all week, and I keep yawning, so I'm very sorry that I keep yawning. Is that what it is? Is my circulation bad? Maybe that's it. Maybe we figured it out. Maybe I just need better circulation. But I wasn't 100% on like what was going on there. So, yeah. I need to sleep, but I don't think I can. Anytime I feel really sleepy, I go to lay down, and then I don't do that. not right away. There's like a delay, and then it was like a delay. Yeah, because you don't show up. You show up, but you're irritated about it. There's no contractual obligation for you to respond, because maybe is a very common word. Yeah, like I'll lay down, I'll try my best. I do my best. I do all the things they tell you to do. Like I stop getting on my phone like an hour before, and like I'll go and like knit something and like do something really calming to like jazz my brain down. I don't drink caffeine for the last like hour and a half before I go to sleep. I drink like a decent amount of water before I go to sleep. I like don't, I do all the things that I'm supposed to do. They say that help you go to sleep, and then it doesn't work. Thanks, Crimson. Thanks, man. I mean, I thought I'd give it a try, but like it doesn't really like do it. And then I lay down, and all of a sudden I am filled with all the raw questions of the universe, and I do not know why. Like, I'll be laying there plotting out my TikToks for the next month before I'll fall asleep. Like, it's like I have to go through my entire schedule for the next 3 months, or else I won't be able to rest peacefully. And I have to like go through each plan, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is what I'm gonna do. Who the fuck are you? I don't know you. Who the fuck is Courtney? Why did you just add me on Snapchat? What? No, I'm not gonna check that. That's dumb. I don't know who they are. I don't have any friends. Who is adding me on Snapchat? I have like 2 people on Snapchat, and one of them is Jasmine. Odie. I'm 2 people on Snapchat. One's Nody and one's Jasmine. There's nobody else. I don't know why people keep adding me on Snapchat. I'm like, who are you? How do you know me? It's not even my name. I don't have any other contacts that are really like, My contacts consist of my work colleagues, my none of those are saved, by the way, either. There are no names. So the people I work with, Sarah, Dad, Jasmine, Nody, my mother. And then it's just a bunch of like random people that I have texted from Domino's on behalf of Domino's. So like so I get ads from like Domino's people, which is really strange because it'll also say it if it's from my contacts. So it'll save from like the app into my phone book as their address. So it'll be like a random address has added you on Snapchat. And I'm like, what? But I don't know how I get random ads on Snapchat. My name is literally Hitoshi Shinzo on Snapchat. So like, you don't know me. You don't know me. Who are you? Yeah, like who goes through and friends random people on Snapchat? Like why? 2s for Jamal in the Snapchat. Snaps chicken. Do I really need that last one? What do you mean? Nody or random Domino's people? What? Oh, fuck. No, I don't do that. I chose a character so like myself that I don't have to RP. It's almost like I'm already in character 90% of the time anyway. So... Seriously, it's pretty much just the same exact person, only take the desire to be a hero and just equivalate that with the desire to be a mortician, and that's it. That's the character. Oh, your teacher. Oh, that's even weirder. No. Axe. Axe is for Jamal. Yeah, I do need Noti, that way I know when they're in my house. They just be doing stuff. Noti be doing stuff. Sometimes it's either all or nothing. I will not hear from Noti for weeks on end, and then I'll check in and I'll be like, hey, just need confirmation that you're still alive. Or I come home and they're like sitting in the chair outside drinking an iced tea, like, hey, glad you're home, we have plans. Like, there's never an in-between. Oh, it's just me talking about bullshit. We aren't doing anything. You joined a hot mess, so... Right behind my ear itches. Okay, I got it. But yeah, no, we were... Yeah, for real. I do actually need to see Noti because I get them a present and I need to give it to them. I don't know when I'm gonna get it. I've had it for like a week and I have not gotten the energy to go drop it off. Yeah, block your teacher. That's soups weird. Welcome to chill here. I don't know how much longer we'll go because it's almost 11, isn't it? Maybe like 15 more minutes. And then I'm going to play Final Fantasy 12 until I pass out. That's the plan. Mac, hi. You're back. Hi. So glad to see you guys. Super bummed that my live got cut off last time. I don't know why I got reported, but that's happening a lot lately. I've noticed it with other cosplayers too. It's super bumming me out. It's lame. Yeah, that's really weird. Do I like Dr. Pepper? Not particularly. Mostly because I feel like he's one of those doctors that's not really like a doctor, like Dr. Phil. And I don't really trust in that degree. So... Dude, it happened to you too. Okay, I'm not alone. I've seen a bunch of other cosplayers post about, like, they're like, my live got taken down, I got reported, my account got banned, and like a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I was legit scavenger hunting for you because I haven't posted the video yet because it's taken me a long time to edit because TikTok keeps slipping up the audio. But when I post it, that way you'll know where it's from, because I was afraid I would forget. I will forget to do stuff. So if I make a promise to you, it's not because I deliberately didn't do that. It's because I forgot. And I wanted to do it while I was thinking about it. I was like, I gotta tell them the name of this podcast. So I hunted for you. And my appeal got taken down. So like it was like, yeah, we determined you didn't do anything like this past time. So like I didn't get hit for that. So that's fun. Still sucks that I got reported, but at least it wasn't upheld, because the time before that they said it was upheld. And then I was really afraid it was going to get upheld again. Because then if you get banned too many times or your live gets reported too many times and the appeal is upheld too many times, the time gradually lengthens where you can't go live again. So like if you get taken down, you can't go live for like a week or whatever, the time eventually extends. And so then it'll be like 2 weeks and then a month and then 3 months. And then that would be a super bummer because then we'd have to look into a different platform for story time. Super bummer. But luckily that didn't happen and hopefully it won't. I don't know if it's just raids or if it's like a targeted thing. I'm really hoping it's not a targeted thing, but I feel like it is. You know what I mean? That will be when we bring it down to its knees. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people doing that. Like, I ran into another account that was stealing someone else's content and uploading it as though it was theirs, but then saying a bunch of problematic stuff. And people eventually found the original creator and were like, hey, we're confident you don't act like this, but this user is taking all of your stuff and posting it. And there were a couple of videos on that, and it's like a super small account, but it's still like nobody should have their content stolen. Like you could even see in the corner where they had put the watermark, the TikTok watermark, and then blocked it out with a sticker. Like they had clearly stolen it and then tried to cover it up with a sticker, because I found the account after that. I'll snoop. If I feel like some cosplayer's been hard done up, I don't care how small the account is. I will go and find it and report it. Like, I don't care if even like this spam account has like 2 followers. I don't care. I'm going to show up. I'm going to report it. I don't care how small you are. If your content's being stolen, I'm going to show out. If I find out about it. So I went and reported it. And then they were like, we've determined there's nothing wrong with this account. I was like, yeah, sure you have. Fucking. Sure there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, that's true. It happens pretty regularly. Yet, normally if I have a really good reason to look somebody up and I'm like, somebody bullying a cosplayer? Not on my watch. Like, and I don't ever like make videos about that kind of stuff, but I will privately go hunt it down and like report them and like, but I don't like to remind people of negativity. Like, so I don't make videos that are like, you know, like, and I don't think, you know, other people will do their thing and what works for them and what makes them feel good. And if they're going to make that stuff, I respect it. And like, but, and I think there's a difference between sharing in an experience and wallowing in an experience. And I like those posts that are like, here's how we can help your reach and what you can do and what we can do as a community to help bring us up out of this, instead of just like, my reach is low videos and I'm sad about it. Like, there's a difference between the two. And so like, I've been trying to like share more cosplayers and like actively fix my algorithm, because for a while my algorithm was hot broken and I have no idea why. And it wasn't showing me any cosplayers, even when I would try and seek them out. Like, it would not. I finally think I got it fixed though, because I've been seeing a lot more cosplayers on my follower page. So that's really fun. But I've been making more of a concentrated effort to try and seek people out and help where I can. And I like doing that, but I've come across a lot of weird stuff in the past couple of days, though. Yeah, see, it just keeps giving me weird, just random white bread shit. Which is fine if you're into that. But, like, did I need to see a random heteronormative white couple just try every fall drink at Starbucks? No. Why would you show me that? I want to see the Todoroki cosplayer. Yeah, like I just keep getting weird stuff. And I have 2 interests. Well, 4 interests. And in order of importance, it's dead stuff, cats, coffee, and cosplay. And that's it. If it's not like a cat, or it's not like someone grave cleaning, and it's not a Todoroki cosplayer, it's gonna be the coffee gremlin. You know, there's only 4 options. I'm only into like 4 things. So, that's it. That's not even that's not even a Hitoshi thing. That's purely actually my interest. It's the only thing I'm into. And it's not showing me any of those things. It's showing me like, why? I want to know what happened with the grandma who was digging up the grave of her nephew. I really want to know. Did they get him up? Did she get her plot back? Was she really mad? What did the mom do? Was the mom there? She knows the body is encased in concrete, right? But no, I don't get any of that. I get white people tasting every fall drink in Starbucks. Where's my cosplayers at? Where's some other Shinzos? I don't know where all my stuff is gone. It's gone. You're giving me weird stuff. Don't like it. You get things that you've intentionally blocked? How does that work? Like pages or accounts that you've blocked, or like stuff that you've just hit like not interested in? Yes. Although I have found several really good dinkies over the past like 3 days, and I'm living for it. Absolutely living for it. Frog Talk. Yeah, where did Frog Talk go? I have seen 1 snake video in the past several days. It's a good snake video though, so I'm not complaining. Egg peeling talk was better than finger puppet talk. Hot takes with Mac. News at 11. I will send you some videos. Yeah, I love grave cleaning talk. I love it because they always do the research behind it a lot of the time first. They're like, this was Jennifer Watkins. She was born in 1937. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to fall asleep to this. This is how I want to go. I want someone to do an overview of my life while they clean my nasty ass grave. Grave cleaning was my shit. And I don't get any. Where are they all at? And I follow like a good like number of death talk people. Like I follow about like 7 morticians alone. Not to mention all the grave cleaners that I know I follow. I follow about 2 or 3 different sets of grave cleaners. I know there is another one. Oh, Morbid Mushroom, I think got taken down. There was another account that would work on a lot of taxidermy stuff, and I believe they eventually got like banned, and that's why I haven't seen them. They're still on Instagram though, because I looked them up on Instagram, but TikTok kept getting, like, someone kept reporting them because they thought it was gross. But, and I mean, I can kind of see that because that's literally a lot of the time dead animals. So if you're going to show dead animals on screen at some point, you know, TikTok's going to be like, So I can kind of see that, but it's not like they were, you know, being disrespectful or about it. And they did have warnings on everything they posted that showed anything problematic like that. And they put like almost every single one of their videos, it will give you the warning and you have to click watch for you to watch it. So they did all of that. But I think they eventually got banned. I really like their account too, but they're still on Instagram, so. Witch Talk has been... I voluntarily left Witch Talk, I will say. Witch Talk, there are a couple still Witch Talk accounts that I follow that I will watch. But I voluntarily dipped out majorly on Witch Talk because Witch Talk be messy, man. Like, so messy. Started giving you more cats. Yeah, like, I'll have to, like, if it's an account or a cosplayer or something that I really like that I know has stopped posting, I saved a video. I gotta go hunt down this other cosplayer and see what they're on now, because they just made a post that said that they probably weren't going to be on TikTok much longer, and I was like, great, gonna save this so I can go look you up on any other place, because I feel it. That's upsetting. So, but Witch Talk was messy, so I just dipped out of Witch Talk, you know what I mean? Because there was so much, like, infighting with a few accounts, and I think, I don't know, maybe it was just when I joined Witch Talk, but everybody was pointing fingers at, it was like everybody was on a team, and if you weren't on the right team or whatever, I don't know. There was literally like a clash about, I don't even know now, maybe like a year ago is when I dipped out. It's been longer than I think it has, probably. Between, who was it, like Witchfoot or somebody and like another creator, and they were fighting about somebody. Oh yeah, everybody thinks the cosplay TikTok is toxic. The TikTok cosplay is toxic. Witch Talk is so much worse. Like, literally almost nothing on Witch Talk was unrelated to these two creators for like 3 months, to the point where I was like, I don't know when the last time I have watched actual content was. And I'm kind of really tired of the negativity. Like, for Witch Talk and y'all be talking about good vibes all the time, this is actually kind of the opposite. So I just dipped. I do too. I will I will dissect that every single time I see it. I'm like, okay, what are they doing? What is in that? What do they do? Don't trust that. Like, I am immediately worried of anybody who is dicking around in the wrong way. And sometimes I'll see stuff and I'm like, I'll go dip in comments sometimes, and people will be telling people to do the wildest stuff. And I'm like, no, those aren't what coffin nails are for. You don't do that. Oh, maybe that's wrong. And I'm like, but you never want to be the person that's like, hey, don't use that. Don't do this way. Because then that other creator is like, who the fuck are you? And then that creates fighting in the comments section. You can't tell anybody to do anything on Witch Talk ever. And a lot of the time, even when you want to, someone else has already done the commenting for you. So then you just follow their conversation. And the conversation very quickly devolves. I don't fuck around on Witch Talk no more. I did for a hot minute. I was like, let's see what's over door number 2. No, door number 2 is terrible. Never go behind door number 2. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Unless you're a real big fan of drama, then you'd really enjoy it. Like, the only the only people I would advise to go to witch talk are not people interested in witchcraft or in any practice thereof. I would not advocate going there for knowledge or information. But if you do not want to delve into witchcraft and you just want to watch some petty ass bitches do some petty ass drama, just chill in their comment sections for a while. You'll find it. If you really need some tea, it's a good place to go. I'll tell you. That's what I like doing. Yeah. They're taking our short long boys. What? What is going on? Oh, okay, dogs. Okay, I was like, wait, what? But yeah, that's the only thing I advise going to witchcraft TikTok for is drama. Drama, that's it. Drama. Because that's the only thing it's good for. And I'm not like a very drama attracted person. I'm more of a like, hey guys, let's all just calm down. And if things don't calm down, I'm like, I'll be outside. Like, I don't need to know. I don't want to know. And if it gets too heated, I'ma just leave. Like, I don't need to know. I'll just go sit outside. So I just left. I was like, I don't need to know this. This is none of my business. And you don't know what you're doing. A lot of these people don't know what they're doing. And the people who do know what they're doing and trying to educate people are being argued with by the most asinine people on the internet half the time. And I bet it's infuriating to be like, if you're really into witchcraft as like a practice or a religion and you are trying to find a community to help you grow in your craft and find a good supportive community, I bet witch talk is terrifying for you. My heart goes out to you. That is not the space. It seems from the outset like a wonderful thing. But it's kind of like, you know, like in reality, it's kind of like a theme park. You know what I mean? Like, you know, theme parks in practice seem like they'd be like really fun places. And you can ride rides and, you know, there's food and games and you go and you have a great time. And you go and you do none of those things. The lines are always too long. It's always too hot. It's really gross. No one throws anything in the trash. There's a bunch of kids screaming. It smells disproportionately of chlorine and sweat at the same time somehow. And nothing tastes good because it's all deep fried and terrible. Nothing is actually seasoned and everything is overpriced. And you actually have a terrible time. But from the outset, it seems like a really good idea. I feel like that's what Witch Talk is. Witch Talk is an amusement park. Was that whole metaphor because I'm calling Witch Talk a joke? Maybe. I wouldn't go that far. Night, Shinzo. Bye. Don't trust Witch Talk. I also hate amusement parks. That is also a reason I chose it. Because amusement parks are fucking terrible. Yeah, like Kings Island. Kings Island sounds fucking ass. Kalika left too. Oh, bye. Bye, everybody. Everything is terrible and nothing makes sense on Witch Talk. But cosplay TikTok, I feel like it's a different matter. I feel like there are relatively a small number of people either on the fringe of the community and either have trouble with social cues and boundaries, or not in the community and dislike the community because they still think cringe culture is a thing, and conversely make it bad, or are a member of the anime community but do not like the cosplay community, that kind of bring the movement down. And also just like a lot of unchecked racism and ableism that doesn't really get anybody held accounted for, and they never get held accountable for it. So they continue to spread that ideology through a medium, sort of like Gamergate. You know, like the same people who took the incel ideology and spun it into a medium to get attached to. It is simultaneously like a rhetoric that is completely separate from, but also completely attached to a sociological group. Gamers, right? And I think that we're seeing the same thing in some of the cosplay community. It's branching off because cosplay is gamer adjacent. So my theory, and this is a theory, nobody read too much into this, is that we are now seeing a transference of this sociology into the cosplay community. Cosplaygate. And transferring that ideology from one group to the next. And you can take from that what you will. But I do think that's a problem. And I also think that TikTok as an algorithm also has an interest in suppressing our content. But that is my opinion. Is those two things, well, three things technically, are dragging us as a community down. And I think there are a good positive group of individuals within the community that are like, here's what we can do to help, here's how you can help, here's how I can help. And trying to make the best of it and trying to keep on trucking and giving avenues for expression, giving avenues of options for other cosplayers, and people who are sharing their knowledge of how to do things and how to improve your lighting, improve your wig styling, improve your makeup or lighting or what have you, and taking those ideas and sharing them and giving them to other cosplayers in a good sense of faith that they will make their cosplays better and improve their reach and help them feel more confident and less likely to bow out of TikTok altogether. And I think those things are helping. And I guess it's just right now a race to see if who's going to succeed with their spectrum the first. And I guess we'll see how the community responds. I have high hopes. There is a train very close by my house. It was 11:11 and there are 11 people in here. But yeah, I encourage you, if you see TikTokers on your For You page, share their content, even do the copy link thing if you don't feel comfortable sharing it or you don't have any friends like me. I'll copy link cosplayers that, I'll comment. I've tried commenting more. I'm not great at commenting because I'm not good at talking. And it's just another hurdle of just talking to people, which I generally do not do. I go through the process. I've liked every cosplayer that I see, especially if they're POC or disabled. That's one of the reasons I try and caption all my shit. I can't caption everything sometimes. Right now, TikTok is giving me a whole thing. It keeps fucking up my captions because I have to caption the thing myself because it won't auto caption, and I have to do the captions, and TikTok keeps erasing my captions whenever I go to edit this video. It's driving me absolutely up the wall. But you try and caption everything, you try to make everything as accessible as possible, and I try my best. It doesn't always work, but it helps. And if you can help anybody in the community, especially when you see people who have really low reach, do your best to help out. Same, Denny. That's my game. Is I don't like to talk to people. I've left more comments in the past several days than I have in like my entire TikTok career. I do not talk to people very much. No, TikTok will erase those sometimes, baby. It's super fun. You got to do it all over again. And it often hits when you put too many. Like if you have an audio clip that's a little longer, my phone erases them. And the audio I have is over a minute, so it's really doing a number on me. It's really pissing me off. It has a lot of captions. It keeps erasing them. And sometimes I'll finish editing one, I'll tag it, save it to my draft, so all I have to do when I wake up the next day is post it, right? And I go to post it, and the captions are gone, and I'm like, oh. So if you ever see a video of mine, and it's not captioned, and it's not a duet that was originally uncaptioned, that means TikTok erased it. So when you do see those, it means they erased it, because I usually always caption my videos. Always. Because it makes it more accessible. You mean like clip certain sounds or like shorten them? Because you can edit them, there's an option, but like it's super finagly and awful. If you go directly to your sounds, don't go to the video and add sound, go to your sounds first. And you can select it, and after you select it, instead of going to the use sound, there's like a little scissors next to it. Well, depending on the phone, because I have a Samsung, I have an Android, so I'm not sure if it does this on iPhone or not, but there's like a little scissors, and you can go hit that and then move the sound to where you want to clip it, and then you clip, and then you, but it's super finagly. And it doesn't work, the scissor clipping thing does not work for if you want it to be longer than 15 seconds. Which is really annoying. But other than that, clipping sounds is super, super annoying. I'll tell you what I do. What I do is I sometimes download the video with the sound. I then strip the sound from that audio clip, upload it into an editing software like CapCut, upload your video, and then move the sound to where you want it to start and where you want it to go. Like to be able to move the sound from one end of the spectrum to the other so you can move it to which segment you want it to start at. And then cut off the end, save it, import it to your phone, upload it directly from your phone to TikTok. Sound's already there. It'll then just show it as an original sound. So that's also an option. That's a little bit more detailed than maybe you might want to go. But once you get the hang of it, that one's actually kind of quicker sometimes. To me, it's quicker. But that's a little bit less of a hassle to finagle the little scissors thing and then TikTok does its thing, and then it won't let you record for over 15 seconds. So if your clip is longer than 15 seconds, it's annoying, and you can't use the scissors. So then you have to use the whole sound clip, and you can adjust the clips feature, but that strangely enough, I've had instances where it will still try and fit the audio to the places that you clipped, even though you did not want that section of audio there. So then you just have it sped up. It'll just speed up the audio to fit the video clip. It's really annoying. It's not even video editing. You're not editing the video. You're editing the sound. So you already got your video laid out where you want it to go. You got your video, you filmed it, whatever. You just upload that into CapCut. You don't do anything else to it. You don't have to finagle around with the features and the whatnot. Right after you enter CapCut and you upload that video, there's going to be a little symbol right off next to it that says Add Sound. You're going to hit that. You're going to go to My Files. You can hit the video that you just downloaded from TikTok with the sound on it. And you hit that, and it'll strip the audio from the video file and put it under your video. Bam. You have the sound. And then you can move the sound to wherever you want to go. All you do is take your finger and drag it to wherever you want it to start. And you hit save. Import, it takes it off the software and into your phone. Sometimes you can upload it directly from CapCut to TikTok. If you haven't, you can hook up your TikTok account to your CapCut and it'll automatically send it there. And then it'll have the sound already in the video. So it's not really you're editing the video. CapCut has the features to edit video, but you don't necessarily have to use all those. You know what I mean? You're just moving sound around. Yeah, it's really not. I've done that with so many audios. I did this with the audio that I just uploaded because it was really annoying to try and do it any other way. I was like, CapCut is the easiest method for this. You cannot change my mind. CapCut's the only option sometimes because they make it way easier. But CapCut also, infuriatingly, the only thing that I don't like about CapCut is you cannot film within the app. So if you are trying to sync a video to you talking, or you want it to look like you're saying the sound, right? If you're using it for that, filming it, it is pretty much critical to have the sound playing while you're recording it. CapCut does not let you do that, and it's really annoying. This is more of a cosplayer problem than it is for you, probably. You probably might not have as much of a time doing that. But if you wanted to make it look like you're saying the words, you have to record it with the audio playing, which you cannot do because you can't record in CapCut. And it's super annoying to try and record in CapCut when you can't. Hey! Pond, who's a perfect princess. Is it you? Is it you? You want to say hi to your adoring fans? Oh, that's who they're really here to see. They're here to see you. They don't give a shit about me. Here, come on, look at this kitty. Look at this kitty. Look at the camera. You don't want to look at the camera? Fine. What an ungrateful regent. Oh. Big purrs. Yeah? Big purrs. Who's a good pond? It's pond time. Pond for president. 2024. Yeah, good. Yeah. Ow, that's my leg. Ow. Nails. Your wonky nail, Pond. It's right on my thigh. Ow. It's okay. It's okay, because she's perfect. Oh. Okay. Okay, it's off my leg now. Thank you, Pond. Thank you for having mercy on me. Oh. Yeah, comfy blanket. You can make mittens on this one. This one's not new. You can't make mittens on the other one because I'm taking that one to Hope House. Paul's like, I never wanted to become a lawyer. Never wanted to run for office. Whoa. Can you hear her purring? Is that ASMR for you guys? Yeah, she purrs really loud. Yeah. Good kitten. Oh. She's my best girl. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can lay down right there. Yeah. Oh. Why? What's on my hand? Why are you licking it? Just look at my hand. She's my favorite. This is the most stress relieving thing that's happened all day. Oh, Pond. Good kitten. Good kitten. Yeah. Lay down. Well, now that I can't move for the foreseeable future, just can't go anywhere. Smokey's like, you have another cat here? Is that what this is? Instant betrayal. Be like, I don't even know that cat at all. It's some random internet cat. I swear to God, I'm not petting another cat. Sometimes I'll come home after work, and my favorite part of any work night is when I encounter random cats on the street. There's a lot of strays, and sometimes I find them running around outside and in alleys, and sometimes, like, they'll even let me pet them if I can, like, you know, get them to not run away from me. Depends on the cat. It depends on how old they are. But sometimes I can coerce strange street cats to come let me pet them. And I'll, like, pet stray cats, and then I'll come home. And Pond every single night. I feed them at 4 a.m. That sounds so strange if you don't know my schedule, but I get off work at the latest at 3, and I feed them at 4 and 4, so 12 hours apart. So I feed them at 4 in the morning, so when I get off work, Pond is often waiting for me on top of the file cabinet in the kitchen. And when I enter the door, just sitting on the file cabinet, starts screaming until I come over. And she'll, like, hop up on my shoulder. And I'll feed her, and she'll eat a little bit, and then want me to carry her around like a baby. And sometimes when I come home and I've pet a lot of stray cats, she'll, like, go to leap up on my shoulder, but then she'll, like, lean back and, like, look at me. Just like, you smell funny. I just want you to know that I know that you know that I know you did something wrong. Like, it's really funny. Oh, you're gonna get a kitten. Oh, congratulations. If you're gonna go get BMO, you should go get BMO. Go get BMO. Yeah, that's what Pond treats me like. That Bella doesn't give a shit. As long as Bella gets fed, she doesn't care. Yeah, so like Pond will just like lean back and just she's a good cat, aren't you? You're my number one cat though. Aren't you? Yes, yes, yes. You're my favorite. Best cat. Best cat. Aw, that's adorable. I have to use that sound. If I could film that in the middle of the night, because oftentimes the kitchen is like pitch black and you cannot see in 2 inches in front of your face. So if I ever get that on camera, I'm going to use that sound. Because that'll just be the pinnacle, wouldn't it? Aww. Yeah, it was really, I think, well, Pond's gotten used to her now, but when we first brought Bella into the house, she was like, is this my replacement? Like, treated Bella really shitty, treated us really shitty for like a really long time until she acclimated, and she was like, oh yeah, no one can replace me. I'm Pond. I'm like, aw, here comes the boy. I was in a situation like that when I was younger. My grandmother was deathly afraid of cats and refused to have one. So I had a chocolate lab growing up, and then the minute I moved out of the house, I was like, I'm getting a cat. So whenever I got out of the house, I was like, I'm getting cats. All the cats. Always wanted a cat. Still getting a cat. No one can stop me now. Yeah, exactly the energy. She was just like, excuse me, I see there's another cat here, and I can't help but notice. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, if I was allergic, I'd just take Benadryl all the time. We're not getting rid of the cats. We're never getting rid of the cats. I don't care how sick I am. I will die with a cat in my arms if I become allergic. I don't care. Smokey ignores dogs. Aww. Bella is straight up a bully to every other animal in this house except Pond. She will defer to Pond. But that is it. Bella will straight up antagonize the dog. I have watched her smack the dog in the face. Multiple times. It's really funny, actually, because we have this gigantic small dinosaur of a dog that will knock everything off the coffee table with one sweep of its massive tail. And then we have this itty bitty, not even like a foot high off the ground kitten. And she is an absolute terror. And she will just walk up. He will be in a dead sleep. And she will just bat him 4 or 5 times on the face and run the hell off. And he'll wake up real confused. He doesn't even know what happened. All the time. All the time. Yeah, don't leave. You gotta stay. BMO is not going anywhere. Yeah, I just take allergy meds like all the time. There's no way. There's no way. This girl's my baby. She's not leaving. No. Never. No. 'Cause you're the best cat, aren't you, Pond? Aren't you, Pond? Everyone on the internet loves you. Can I get a meow? That's not a meow. That's a yawn. Okay. She doesn't want a mom. No, you can't have her. She's gonna stay with me forever. Stay with me forever. You wouldn't kidnap this face. You can't kidnap this face. Look at this face. Yes! I got a cat meow. Aw, Sue. What an adorable kitty. Okay. I love everybody's cats. I just love everybody's cats. I am so weird when I deliver because, like, occasionally I'm in the worst mood until a cat comes out. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm just like, that's like $9.95. And then I'm like, you have a cat? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, what's her name? Can I touch her? And they're like, I just become the most excited immediately. I'm like, can I pet the cat? And they're like, you want to come into my house and pet my cat? I'm like, yes. Yes, I do. That would be the easiest way to kill me. Yes, that would be the easiest way to get rid of me, is just to be like, I have a cat in this van. I would be like, all right, okay. Forget candy or anything else. I did have somebody try that one time. I forgot all about that until like just now. I had someone come up and they were just like, not with a cat, like legit tried to, they were like, I have $300. And I was like, okay. And they were like, if you want to come and help me real quick, I need help doing this thing. If you want to get in my van, and then we go to the Shell station, and then and I'll give you this $300. And I was like, I wasn't born yesterday. That's not happening. Okay. But if you offered me a cat and were like, hey, if you want to get in the back of this van, I have a cat that I just rescued, I'd be like, give me the cat. I will take the cat. I had someone offer me a kitten on a delivery the other day, and I straight up almost took it, but I knew Dave would, like, legit be like, what did I say about the cats? What? I was like, but it was a tip. The kitten was a tip. And then also, the fact of the matter is that I would have to be driving around for another 4 hours on my shift with a kitten in the back seat of my car. Pet pawn for you, please. I'll pet pawn for you. This is from Mina. Mina says hello. Yeah. Oh. You get the scrunchy-eyed purse where she scrunches her eyes up and she lifts her chin up. Yeah. Good kitten. She likes chin scritches. She's a good girl. Yes. Who's a good girl? Is it you? It's you. It's you. Yeah. She has really loud purrs. And she purrs a lot. Yeah? Do you have something to say? Do you have notes for the public? Is that all you have to say? Very interesting. Thank you, Pond. Yeah, kitten purrs. It's my favorite. Well, now that Pond's made her closing argument, I think I'm going to head out because it's 11:40 at night. Encore? Okay, one more encore, and then I'm going to go play Final Fantasy 12 until I pass out. Okay. Thank you, Pond. So gracious. I might have to make that. Bravo, Pond. Yeah, I will see you here next week, same time, same place, same book club. We're gonna read more book and talk shit, and you can listen to my cat purr, maybe, and also cat facts. So I hope you all had a good time. And if you want to know what happens next week, you can tune in Tuesday at 8 Central. Bye.